BCube Sunday morning. It's election night. Yahoo! And remember, if it's election night, vote blue. I'm Bob Brown. I have the joy of running BCube Press along with some wonderful people. Karen Anderson is with us, KG Anderson. And then Adam Troy Castro is here. He's the one, he's the bald one. Well,
hello, everybody. I was trying to get an electoral map, so I'm really jumping the gun.
And then we got the ping pong player. Larry Hodges has the dubious honor of being the best ping pong player in SIFWA. And that is SIFWA is the Science Fiction Writers of America. And
which I got to rejoin someday.
So, okay. And then later on, we're going to be bringing on a few other writers that are part of our new book that we just put it out, Southern Truths. Now, the reason we're making such a big deal about Larry Hodges is because he wrote what I like to think of as the fundamentally best story in the book. And considering there's two other authors sitting in front of me, I hope they're not offended, but it is great.
I'm going to storm off in a huff.
And hello, Carrie. So this is our first time doing something like this. And this is where I look over at Karen and say, what do you think we should do now?
Well, let's see. We're just warming up. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Carrie. Wow, people are coming on. Let's give a little bit of background about our experience as election night host. Bob, haven't you been a poll watcher for a number of years?
No, what I got elected to office a few times. I was my best time ever getting elected to office was I was running against, don't be offended, but the Mormon stake president in a town that was 30% Mormon, and I beat him by 4 votes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool. He's a good guy.
He swept his wives.
Well, what happened was you heard about the ground game, right? Do not ever underscore miss the bet on the ground game. I made a point. I started at his house and did a spiral out through the whole district, knocking on every door and selling myself, just like they're doing in Pennsylvania with Kamala. And he started thinking, wow, maybe I ought to have to campaign or something. So he started, and it turned out everywhere he went, he found out I had already been there, and he just gave up. And so the ground game's important, and that's why I got great confidence in Kamala. So, no, I was a precinct committee officer. I was a member of the Democratic Central Committee. I always thought we could have had a better name than the Central Committee. Might as well call ourselves the Politburo. But it was fun, and I enjoyed it. So that's where my interest in politics came from.
Larry's gone.
Who, Karen, you'd like somebody to go for a lower camera resolution.
Larry.
Yes, Larry's in a hotel room in Toronto. I think he's up there in one of his tournaments. And he said he's got very limited bandwidth. And I suggested that he reconfigure our app Restream to reduce the pull on the bandwidth from the video so that he would have better audio. But he's gone off for a while. You'll have to watch and see. Bob is the traffic manager here. He'll see who's in the backstage and who's coming on.
And so very quickly, as soon as Jim comes on board, I am going to step into the background and let Karen be running it. And there I see we got Andrew Lucas that came on, and Rebecca Wortman. Hot damn. Welcome to the show tonight, guys, because we are excited. Anybody out there, a little bit of ground rules. Karen, tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Is anything you know that you think everybody else should know, put it in the comments section, make it a link, whatever. You're not going to offend us. We are not going to say, oh, you're distracting from us talking.
Yeah,
so
I do have an update. I do have an update as of now.
yes,
The Republicans were sweeping the states at the very beginning because all the southern states were coming in. Obviously, would go to them, and it was something like 100 for Trump and like 12 for Kamala. It was embarrassing. As of this moment, it is 99 to 106. Kamala's 99. It's going to take a jump as soon as more of the Democratic states, the blue states, come in.
So I hear that North Carolina is doing some interesting things, that they've already called the governorship. Any word on the Karen? You guys are all watching that. Any word on the presidential race? I mean, I understand the women are coming in at enormous numbers in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue. We have the Democrats have come in Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey. Not yet D.C., surprisingly. Delaware and Maryland. Pennsylvania looks good, and North Carolina looks good.
Bob, Larry is backstage. Do you want to try letting him in again and seeing what we've got in terms of bandwidth? I have just posted on Facebook 2 links that viewers may find helpful. One is to the Electoral College votes. There is a 270 to Win is a website that is following the Electoral College votes as they become certain. And hey, Jeff Sturgeon. And then I also put up a site called rollcall.com, and they're going to be following all of the races and measures that involve abortion rights that have something to say about that. So if people are following that issue closely,
that unfortunately has gone down in Florida.
Yeah.
Just
too bad.
It has failed in Florida. No, actually, it's the Weed amendment that failed.
Okay.
Trump is still.
Speaking of Florida, it looks like we have Alan coming. Alan Diane Shapiro, who is one of the Southern Truth authors and has a lot to say about politics. Nope. There's Alan.
There he is.
Hello, Alan?
Lurking off in the corner.
Yes. You're not centered on the camera.
I don't know if he hears us.
Alan, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
This is very noir.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Let me turn off the sound on one.
Yes, you've got some echo there.
Okay, so am I okay now?
You're not centered.
Other than
you're
the
not
voice.
centered.
All right.
No, we're getting a lot of echo on the voice.
Now we're getting a kite.
This is looking better. We have a kite and a hat.
All right. Now are we here?
He's moving the ear.
All right. Let me just move.
Good to see a fan show up.
Laura Mendez says that she believes both of the Florida measures failed.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad. Yeah.
And big business Republicans wanted it to go through, but apparently the extreme right kind of scotched that. But, they really wanted that to go through because it would have been a good business thing. But
one of the big things about this election cycle is watching the Republican Party fight against itself. It's really astonishing. So Adam Troy, I have to ask you, I followed DeSantis for quite a while when I was in Florida, but I haven't been back to Florida in about a year. Is DeSantis still really popular? Does he call the shots still?
He still calls the shots, and his tactics of late, he is so strong. He has gone into a kind of terror. He's attacking. He's who don't toe the line. He's he's thinking, he's sending investigators after people who speak up against him. It's like very Soviet. Very Soviet here. It's terrible.
Wow. When I was in Florida for many years, from the first Trump election, I heard people all around me being very pro-Trump. And then about 2 years ago, a lot of people were really unhappy with DeSantis's "Don't Say Gay" because so many people had gay relatives and friends, and they started to wonder about DeSantis. But I don't think this is caught up to DeSantis. And I guess he's not running for office again, so he's sort of untouchable.
Voldemort got reelected. That's Rick Scott. He got reelected.
Wow, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, so that's bad. I mean, we need somebody here to keep because I'm not successfully doing this at a rate enough to participate
and trying to watch stuff. Yeah, okay, we will have other folks coming on. I'm going to actually address our audience a little bit. This is pretty exciting. This is the first time Bob Brown has done this, and we're going to have people coming on and off during the evening, including Cliff Winnig. We're going to have Jim Wright on for a while. Cliff is bringing on a lawyer from California who's going to talk a lot about abortion rights and abortion legislation and candidates at the national level as well as in California. So that should be real interesting. We've been trying to get Larry Hodges on because Larry wrote an amazingly timely story for Southern Truths, and it's called "It's Election Day in Texas, and I'm a Democrat raring to vote." And it's about obstruction of the polls, which luckily we are not hearing a lot about this year, which I was worried about. And I've heard very, very little. I guess there was some Russian hacking in Atlanta. Is the only thing I've heard. And then out
Georgia
here in
had
Washington,
about 30 different electoral places, 30 different voting places, and it has been tracked to Russia. And it was
ironically
exclusively
the drama was out here in the Pacific Northwest, where a very, very professionally assembled bomb went into 2 ballot boxes. In one case, I didn't realize this, but did you know that ballot boxes, at least the ones out here, have special fire suppressants in them? They're the ones that are used in commercial kitchens. And as soon as they sense fire, they douse everything. In one case, the ballots were preserved. In the other case, they were damaged.
Yeah.
But still, 2 ballot boxes out of everything there was is pretty reassuring that was the limit of the tampering.
Well, the reassuring part may still come up later. Let me see. I'm going to try to get the vote. What tonight is, let's assume happily that Kamala edges one out. And since she's ahead in North Carolina, which is an unexpected state, and Arizona was an unexpected state and is also going to make a difference. She went another 1 or 2 of that. She does not need Pennsylvania, which she's winning right now. But what we will have is the last 5 minutes of the horror movie, where Michael Myers, where Laurie thinks Michael Myers is dead and Michael Myers sits up. That's that's what's going to be coming, because there are already people in the Republican Party who are saying to Trump, claim victory now, because everything else you could say, oh, then they turned it around, like none of these votes counted, which is something which is not quite working for him anymore.
Apparently, strategic approaches don't seem to be working for the Trump campaign at all.
Yeah,
he's not doing what his advisors are telling him. Hello, Cliff. How was the ice cream?
Hello, Cliff.
Actually, we went to Starbucks, which is right near what used to be my polling place, and now I drop off the ballot. So what Karen is alluding to is I have a tradition of voting on Election Day, And I have always brought my children, once they were old enough to toddle, with me when I vote, which is what my mother did. And when my mother voted, they had the voting machines with all the levers. And I remember she would let me pull the final lever that tallied everything. And I had to reach up and pull it because I was so little. So I did that when my older kids were old enough. And now when my youngest, all three of them, they come with me. And instead of going to, since COVID, instead of going to like the polling place and while I fill out the ballot, I fill it out in advance and drop it off in front of the local library, which is conveniently a block from Starbucks. And then we go to Starbucks. We've always gotten snacks afterward. Like that's the total like Pavlovian reward thing that I've had going for that, for my kids.
I was telling Adam before we went live, I was telling him that my mother, who died a couple of years ago, told me that when she was a little girl, women had just gotten the vote, and her mother took her to the polls the first time she voted. And my mother was fairly politically interested. She always voted. And in 2016, I flew down to Florida to sit with my mother so we could watch Hillary Clinton win. And I will never forget my mother's reaction as we sat there and those results came in. She realized not just that Clinton wasn't going to win, but who was. And she went into shock. She could not believe that someone like Donald Trump could become president. And unfortunately, that's what happened. My mom's gone.
Here we
now,
are for a third try, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I gotta tell you, the centenarian who I am rooting for today is Jimmy Carter. Okay, Jimmy Carter stayed alive, I think, to vote for Kamala Harris.
That's what he said publicly.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like he has all that much. I mean, more people die the day after they turn 100 than the day before, a noticeable amount, and it's because and then they do it, and it's the same thing about any kind of anniversary like that. And Jimmy Carter again wanted to vote for Kamala Harris, and I am not hoping for Jimmy Carter to die, but not by a stretch of the imagination. I think he's earned his rest, but
he's been on hospice for well over a year. So.
Yeah, I don't want Jimmy Carter to have the last thing he knows to be a Trump victory. I just don't, and that's a horrible thing to say, but please let him see Kamala win, and then, and then farewell after a long and very worthwhile life. He did not have the greatest of luck as president.
No,
but he was a good man who lost to a largely bad and somewhat demented man, because it now seems that Reagan was visibly demented, but still functional for a few years. But in 1980, and he's the anti Trump. Just because he's such a good man and he puts, I mean, I'm not even saying this about any other president. Bush Jr. likes to paint pictures of dogs. God bless him for that. I'd rather have him do that. Bill Clinton, all the others, they're living worthwhile post-service lives. The idea of Carter seeing the wrong answer, the wrong solution is just horrifying to me. But
I was listening to NPR tonight before we started with this, and they were analyzing Trump's comments and speeches over the past couple of days, and they were going over what topics he addressed. And it's like, it isn't about what topics he's addressed. It's about what he says about them, his language, his behavior. And I still feel like the press is continuing to fall flat on their faces about this.
They're normalizing him, right? Making him seem like a reasonable candidate.
If they ran front page stories about the questions about Trump's possible dementia, And even I will say possible because I am not a doctor.
Mhm.
I think he's nuts, but he's always been nuts.
Yeah.
But I'm not a doctor to say for a fact that he has it, but it sure as hell seems to me like he does. And it seems to me that that's the reason why there's now a third empty seats at his rallies, because people have clued that in. He's disappearing down, going down the drain fast.
I am actually thinking that after this election, assuming Kamala wins, that there is going to be some kind of amendment or legislation or something requiring that presidential candidates reveal more about their health records, because this is just it's insane. So yeah. And as an older person, I look at my age group and the health issues people are running into, and I think if candidates in their 80s are going to run, I think that their health records should be made public in some way.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with Trump that confuses us is that his rally persona is not that of a distinguished politician and a speech maker; it is that of a stand-up comedian. And I don't think he entirely sucks at that. And oh my God, I'm bending over backwards to be fair. I think he can be very funny. I think he can be. And he has been very funny. I mean, I hate him, but I listen to some of it. That was an artfully delivered punchline, And I will say, absolutely true there. True on that. But on the other hand, you're not getting any actual policies out of that. You're just getting name calling.
And another issue around is that no one believes that any policies he talks about will or will not be implemented. And we have Jim Wright coming on somewhat blurrily, but he's there.
He's in the witness protection program, apparently.
Yeah.
I am.
The right stuff has come to join us.
Oh no. How you guys doing?
We're doing okay.
We're
A
warming up.
little anxious, but doing all right overall.
There seems to be some level of stress in the country at the moment.
Yeah, just a bit.
What's the latest? Does anybody have an update?
The Washington Post is saying that Harris has 99 electoral votes and Trump has 177 electoral votes.
Yeah, that's again though it's awful early. You're sitting here. I mean, to get that number, yeah, I'm looking right at it. I have it on one of my screens here. To get that number right now, first of all, your election results are always read. We always start with the southern states. Harris,
right.
a black liberal woman was never going to win Florida, Alabama, Louisiana. That was never going to happen. But for example, right now, to look at this total where you've got Harris with 99, Trump's with 177. If you drill down on that, for example, they're showing Wyoming is solid red, which it probably is ultimately. But at the moment, there are 0 districts reporting in Wyoming. So there's some degree of you have to be very careful about looking at those numbers this early in the game. And you also have to remember that in the last 2 elections, where these numbers were very red at the beginning and Trump was very far ahead, by the end of the night, Trump was not ahead, and he didn't win the popular vote in either election. And last time he lost it by 3 million votes, and which is of course where all the cheating and election fraud bullshit from Trump came from, because that's just been his complaint for 4 years. I was way ahead, and then all of a sudden something happened. Yeah, we counted the fucking votes. That's what happened. And, congratulations, dude. You just discovered math. The rest of us figured that out in 4th grade. But yeah, and so it's, again, and I will tell you, there's one guy in the country right now that is absolutely certain that Trump is going to lose, and that's Donald Trump, because he is in, if you're watching Truth Social, which I have scrolling up behind your heads right now, that guy, he's in full-on panic mode. So, at this point, everybody should be drinking their favorite beverage, relaxing.
I'm boring.
And,
Water.
and relaxing and not getting too wrapped up. And you have to remember, this is Christmas for the press. The press exists in this country for profit. Profit at the moment is defined by clicks and likes and views. And right now they have 300 million Americans. Well, probably there's probably 200 million Americans that actually give a damn, glued to the screen. And whatever the hell it takes to keep those people staring at that screen and clicking on that refresh button, this is magic hour for the press. And so you're going to see numbers. And I again, there are people that I follow online that I'm watching on Threads and X, because that's where people are, and Facebook right now, that are in the throes of absolute panic and depression. And these are people that should know better. It's too early. I would now. I said this to Bob before we started a couple hours ago. I think Harris is going to win. I think it's a pretty good bet. I will say to you that when you look at actual hard numbers, there are nearly 500, almost 600,000 more women registered to vote in North Carolina who showed up 10-1 to men today. So
I'll announce one thing. Harris is beating Trump in Pennsylvania with 23% of the vote.
Yeah, right.
57. He has 50. She has 57. He has 43. And the direction is really going in the correct place. North Carolina. I don't know what the numbers are right now in North Carolina, but it looked good. It looked good for Harris in North Carolina.
It's close. It's within the margin of error right now. They're showing Trump ahead slightly, but again,
North Carolina.
It's within a 2% margin at the moment. The big one to watch is Ohio, which was blue and it's now red. But again, you're looking at only maybe 58% of districts reporting. Again, if you look at the overall numbers right now, they're within a couple 100,000 votes of each other, up and down, nationwide. Again, and the other side of it too is it ain't over till you cut California. So, you're talking massive amount of electoral votes, and the odds are pretty good. I would say the odds are probably pretty good. Harris is going to win California. So, unless Republicans got some kind of ground game out there in the, the San Joaquin Valley that we don't know about.
Well, I live in California, and that's the vibe.
I get the vague feeling that Harris will probably win California, but again, it's still early. There's still places where people are still voting. Everybody on the East Coast acts like, all right, polls are closed. Let's get frankly, if it was up to me, I wouldn't let it. We could save a hell of a lot of stress and a hell of a lot of grief and a hell of a lot of bullshit with candidates either side by simply saying, we're not 2 days from now. You're going to vote 48 hours. We're going to count. We're going to verify. Everybody's going to be happy. And we'll let you know on Friday what the results are. Now, Americans are instant gratification people. We need to have our happiness or our sadness right now, and we cannot wait. I mean, if there's 3 people ahead of us in the line for Starbucks, we're absolutely furious and enraged. So, I had a woman follow me home the other day and pull a knife on me in my driveway because she didn't get to make a turn at a red light fast enough to suit her, I guess. I don't know. And so, this is the state of America. And so, like I said, right now, take a drink, relax.
Yeah.
I
think Cameo Monroe was just saying work that New York just called. I don't even have to tell you who New York went to.
Well, yeah.
But
I mean, it's pretty obvious. And again, though, again, in New York, yeah, they call New York, but right now there's only 31% of New York reported. Now, it's going to be blue. The city itself is probably mostly counted. They're still counting the outlying districts. She's going to get, all 28 electoral votes from New York.
Big deal. Yeah.
Whatever.
I will say one thing, my belief about New York, I think Kamala's margin in New York is entirely made out of contractors.
Yeah. So like I said, it's, again, if you're panicking at this point, Jesus, man, you're not going to make it. We all knew that this was going to be close. Because reasons here. I mean, you have 320 million Americans. About 200 million of them are eligible to vote. About a third of those, it doesn't matter. It could be the end of the world. Adolf Hitler and the Wehrmacht could be rolling over the hills, right? And these people will be like, well, I don't know. And they're not going to vote. Even in an election like this, they're like, it's a remarkable turnout. Yeah, and 40% of Americans still didn't vote. So there's that. And then we know that at least 72 million Americans think that fascism is a great fucking idea. Can't wait. As long as, and this is about how it was in Germany back in the 1920s, because as long as it's happening to other people, the people that we don't like. I mean, I live here in the deepest of the deep South. I am surrounded by people, by white, old people who are, as you know, Adam Troy knows, they're absolutely terrified that a black man is going to kick in their door, rape their women, and steal all their shit. Because every goddamn Southerner that wants power on the conservative side has told them this for the last 100 years since the Reconstruction. I mean, that's how Abbott got elected in Texas. He got elected in Alabama. They stays in power here in Florida. People are like, how can they keep reelecting Rick Scott? Because he tells them what they want to hear. Look, he's an asshole. They know he's an asshole.
He's a guy who only got into politics because he couldn't be. He only got into politics so he couldn't be prosecuted for crimes he committed as a businessman.
And who does that sound like? For Christ's sake! I mean, shit. And it's hard for people to understand. I mean, hell, I'm from as far north as it's possible to get, but I've been living in the South for a long time, and it is hard for people to understand the mindset down here. I am surrounded by people that live in $500,000 homes, that drive $100,000 cyber trucks, that think nothing of spending $20 on a couple cups of designer coffee, and that are absolutely convinced that socialism in Canada is going to creep down here and get them somehow, and that everybody with dark skin just cannot wait to kick in their door, steal their shit, and rape their women. And I say rape their women because down here, that's the male mindset. And that's who Rick Scott's not appealing to women voters. He's talking to terrified white men who are going to emasculate and rape their women while they're forced to watch. So that's.
I got a great story to tell you.
I mean, that's the message. The message here from 1865.
Adam?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. 2008, I was a poll watcher for the Democratic Party in Miami, Florida, which was, just basically sitting out there all day long, just handing out water, handing out pizza, bringing out chairs if people needed to sit down, which was plenty. But at one point, they asked me to go stand out on the road's median with a sign. And so I stood out there with an Obama sign that night. And along came a woman in it was Romney in 2008, right? It was Romney. Came out with her Romney sign. And one of her people came out to see if she was doing okay because it was a broiling hot day in Florida. And she said, "Can you do me a favor?" To her friend, go to our station, which was their desk, which is more close to the building, and get me a bottle of water. And I, being a sane person, turned to her and said, "Ma'am, we're not voting for the same person, but my table is closer. They won't ask you who you're voting for. Get a bottle of water from them," which is reasonable. You would do it. We would all do it. She said to me, "I'm not going to drink any of that Obama water." I said, "What do you think he peed? What do you think he peed in the bottle? What's wrong with you?"
Yeah,
It was McCain. That's right.
McCain.
Romney was later.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I mean, but I'm surrounded by this mindset every day these people are absolutely convinced that somebody's coming to get them, that their lives are horrible, that I literally live in a state that doesn't have dental care. I mean, I live in a small panhandle southern town, which is basically lower Alabama, and I don't think there's ever been a trans person in this town. If there has, nobody there are signs downtown. They're absolutely terrified of trans people. And I've asked this guy with the sign. This guy must have spent I don't know how many thousands of dollars putting this sign up in his yard about trans people. And he's 80 something years old, and he stands and he's the trans people can't have them seeing our kids. I'm like, you're standing on a corner in a wife beater. What? Anyway. And I said to this guy, well, how many trans people do you know? I mean, how many have you met? I mean, I'm not seeing a lot of trans people in this ratty little southern town. What are you
They tend not to stay in that kind of area.
Well, and that's the thing, and I'm sure there probably are trans people here. It's just that they go about their damn business and nobody notices because it's really not a goddamn thing. But this guy is so terrified that he spent thousands of dollars with signs in his yard about trans people. And as I said, you don't even know any trans people. The hell are you talking about?
I've got a question for you about that guy and the way he votes. Do you think that this phobia of woke, this phobia of trans, all this stuff, is our country going to age out of it? Or is there always going to be this core?
Yeah, I think the odds are we're all going to be dead before that happens, and me probably before everybody else. But the thing is that these kind of things are evolutionary. They take time, and that's not an answer that people want to hear. And I get it, man. You've been clawing for rights and equality and justice and liberty for 500 goddamn years. Nobody wants to hear that they got to wait another 50 or 60 years to get, and I get that. But society has inertia. 8 billion people on the planet, or however you count it, 10 billion now, 350 million in America. And it's not just change, but you have forces working against that change. People that are actively in a place like America, there's a profit in resisting change, right? And so there is working fear against things you don't even know what the hell you're afraid of. I mean, it doesn't take you 5 seconds to log into YouTube and find reporters for, the Daily Show talking to people at Trump rallies who say, what's your biggest fear? Well, woke. Well, what does that mean? Can you define that? Well, no, but I'm afraid of it, or words to that effect. And
yeah,
a lot of people,
but that's happened a lot for younger people. That's where it's coming from in the younger people, the anti-woke, because there's a certain macho, and I hate that word, that goes along with, I'm against woke people. I'm against wokeness in comics.
Yeah.
I remember when Wonder Woman used to stay home at the Justice Society headquarters and be the secretary and hold down the fort. Now she's fighting people. Why is she fighting people? Because she's a goddamn superhero.
And also remember that we were all young once, and I mean, hell, I was young and in the military. I was in Ronald Reagan's military, and fighting the evil empire. Ketchup was a vegetable, I mean, great passion when you're young, and maybe not a whole lot of experience. And we believe that shit. Reagan told us that had to go to I spent a significant fraction of the 80s sitting in the Gulf of Sidra on Muammar Gaddafi's doorstep because Ronald Reagan just had to have some kind of goddamn war to fight. You had to be a war hero. And, and you believe that shit. And it's a little different now because this generation is plugged in. They have more communications than we could have ever imagined. We were fed information in isolation. Also, one of the things that my dad said to me, my dad was a hell of he didn't have a lot of education, but he dropped out of high school and he was 17 to get sent to Korea, that kind of thing. But he was a very smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have another call, by the way.
Yeah, in the later parts of his life, he fell, like so many people of his generation, under the spell of Fox News. And I said to him, and those who don't know, I'm a retired intelligence officer. I did 218 something missions in Iraq. I was there when it started. I was there before. I was there for several months before it started. I was one of the guys that was doing intelligence on the ground. We were the people that were telling the Bush administration, we're not finding what you're saying. And even I had some of that, because when I literally was going up a river in a boat, and we were not seeing the things that they were telling us. And I don't know how many of those reports I made, and the answer is you are only seeing your piece of it. You don't see the big picture, and that's a true statement. I mean, you assume that the president and guys like Dick Cheney and Paul Wolfowitz and Rumsfeld, I can barely say his name. It makes me so fucking furious. You have to assume that those people know what the hell they're talking about, that they have more information than you do. And this is what I don't relate this to tell my own story, but to relate something larger, which was my father, who, when I came back, was telling me that my experience in Iraq was wrong. That the heads on television, on the news, particularly Fox News, were saying that there were weapons of mass destruction, that Saddam Hussein had, yada yada, all that stuff. I said, Dad, I was there. And he says, well, in my generation, first of all, they couldn't put it on the news if it wasn't true. Well, obviously that's never been true, but there's a mindset from that generation that was programmed that way. And there's no logic that you can apply either way. So there's that trust for authority. But also my dad said to me, in my generation, we supported the president no matter what. We're at war. Well, yeah, that's because it's George Bush. So when George Bush left office and Barack Obama took over, he couldn't stand Barack Obama. And I'm like, what happened to that trust the president thing? And so my dad, as great as he was, you watched him fall under that spell. And my mother was very much she told me one time she thought Barack Obama was Hitler, and this is when they were doing the healthcare thing. Later on, after my dad passed away,
I know somebody in my family.
Yeah,
Jim, I know somebody in my family who said that who actually argued with me. This is not family I talk to anymore for other reasons, but she said to me, Barack Obama has never acknowledged that he's half white. He says he's never acknowledged that he's half white. I wrote a book about it. He's only pretending to be black.
Right, but
he's
pretending
to be black to win the presidency. And I'm saying, because that's always been the straight line to the presidency.
Right. Well,
last time I spoke with her, Fox News was too liberal and she was into OAN.
Yeah, well, after my dad died, my mom stopped watching Fox News. She turned the news off because my dad was a news my dad died, my mom stopped watching the news, and a number of years ago, she voted for Hillary Clinton and told me that she thought Barack Obama was one of the greatest presidents of her lifetime. And this is the power of modern media today. So to answer the question that was asked earlier by Karen was, what do you think? Or I guess it was you. The younger generation. Well, again, when you're young, you're very passionate. And this is, I think, this is one of the mistakes that we make in this country quite a bit. We got to get the youth vote. Well, guess what? The youth doesn't vote. I mean, some of them do. 20% of them show up, but they're very passionate. And they'll stand in the rain to protest the destruction of the snowy spotted eagle fish or some goddamn thing. But on the day that it actually matters, they generally don't show up. And that's not a bust on the current generation. It's every generation. We're all like that. And so, yeah, you're very passionate when you're young, but as you get older, hopefully those fires are tempered a little bit. The problem with it nowadays is you don't know. I would back up. We're all science fiction people. A number of years ago, I was sitting in a hotel room with Joe Haldeman and his wife, Gay Haldeman. And Joe is a Vietnam veteran. He was wounded in Vietnam. Of course, he wrote The Forever War. He's a hell of a guy. And he's astounding to talk to. You probably wouldn't remember me from, whatever. But he and I spoke for a long time.
He also wrote a book about his experiences in Vietnam called Warrior.
That's exactly right. And in fact, he and I were.
As happens to be true for many lucky men.
Right. He and I were.
What's great about Joe Haldeman is also Gay Haldeman. So let's just say that.
Right. And so and that's a very true statement because she's a very fascinating and amazing human being. And so while he and I were talking about the weird experiences in war, and one of the things that Joe said to me was that nothing that happened to me in Vietnam made me more conservative. And that stuck with me for a long bit. It's been a long time since he and I had that conversation, but it stuck with me. And that's my experience. I spent 20-something years in the military, 2 wars, and none of my experience made me more conservative. In fact, meeting all of those people in war and serving with people, I grew up in the Midwest. I never met a black person in my life until I joined the military and left the Midwest. Where I grew up, you milked cows or you made cars, okay? And everybody looked just like me. And and they all spoke the same way. They all went to the same football game. They all went to the same school. And it didn't matter whether they were it's all the same experience. You milk cows, made cars. That's how it worked. I joined the military and I met all kinds of people that were way different from me. And people react to that one of 2 ways. Either they are repulsed and they can't wait to get the hell out of there and go back home where everybody's just like them, or they embrace those differences. And we're, again, science fiction people. And I'm going to give a talk I'm going to be at the guest of honor at SMOFCon here in a couple of weeks. And this is one of the talks I'm going to give. Science fiction fans are kind of the same way. There's those fans that grew up in kind of the traditional sci-fi of Clarke and Asimov and the Heinlein, and they look out at the universe as Arthur C. Clarke with wonder and awe and the idea we should go out there and meet those people. And like Larry Niven said, meet people that are different from us, who think as smart as we are, but think differently. And then there are those people. There's people that came from the other side of it, like the Hammers, Slammers, David Drake bunch that are like, there's a lot of weird shit out there. We need to get in the tanks, get out there and conquer its ass.
It was actually Campbell who said, write me an alien who thinks differently.
Yeah, thinks as well as we do, but different.
I got a good announcement to make. I got a good. Mark Robinson has been defeated in Georgia. Thank God.
Yes.
That crazy person has been.
Yeah, and he was always going to lose. I mean, even people in his state, even his supporters were like, yeah. But on the other hand, and he was never really a power in politics. He's great for news channels that need to make revenue by getting people to look at their channel. All right. that guy was never going to win the office.
And the
No.
Republican has apparently taken his Senate seat in West Virginia.
Yeah. But hopefully someone a little more sane and reasonable. I don't know. I will tell you that there was never any doubt that people like Matt Gaetz were going to win Florida District 1 again. I mean, I'm one of Gaetz's constituents. I live here in Florida District 1. The people here in this district only care about one thing: abortion. Nothing like any dim. I mean, whatever other minor ass thing they maybe sort of care about, the only thing that matters to them is making goddamn sure that no woman anywhere ever gets an abortion, ever, under any circumstances. That's all these people care about. I voted in the largest Baptist church in my district today. And that's all they care about. They're out in the parking lot telling you. And so there was no doubt that Matt Gaetz was going to get reelected. Now, I find it hilarious. Today, it's vote day in Matt Gaetz's district. I hope somebody can, I mean, it'd be hilarious if he can find it, because the one place that you're safe from Matt Gaetz is Florida District 1, because he ain't never here. Okay. I'm not sure he could find Florida on a map. But again, the worst people in the universe, look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, these people. You say, how in the hell? There's no way that any rational person could vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene. The woman's a fucking lunatic. That's the same thing with Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is he's a sex trafficker. He's a drunk. Matt Gaetz has done absolutely shit for Florida District 1. Literally nothing. The guy couldn't even rename a post office. The guy has done nothing. Nothing. Every dollar that's coming to this district, he voted against. And yet every sign in the corner down here says, keep Matt Gaetz fighting. For who? And like I said, you look at this stuff and you say, how in the hell could these lunatics get elected? And my neighbors are a perfect example. They will cut their own goddamn nose off, spite you. And this is literally, this is 30 or 40 years of dedicated propaganda, of manipulation by politicians and news media with zero integrity, whose only goal is profit. And the easiest way to profit is to make people afraid. And the easiest way to make people afraid is if they're ignorant and scared and they've stumbled on the key to running a religion. And I know I'm going to make people mad and I'll get hate mail, but the truth of the matter is happy people don't put money in a plate. Scared, terrified people who think they're going to burn in hell are the ones that donate. And that's how it works, man. That's why preachers are flying around in their third or fourth Gulfstream and you're eating cat food. That's how it works.
We're going to be bringing in a couple of other people for a little while. We're going to give Jim and Adam
I'll go
half-hour break.
Yeah,
I'll go.
I'm waiting on a pastrami to hit temperature on my smoker. Everything else has come off now for the day, and so I've got a pastrami that's just about 2 degrees out. So I'm going to log off. Everybody, take a deep breath, relax. Look, we still got a long slog. The numbers
a lot to cover, and a lot's going to happen between now and the end of the evening, and we probably won't know who won by the time we finish.
How do I back out of here?
Okay. Just a reminder, Jim and Troy.
Yeah, Adam, please.
We'd like to see your smiling faces again about 7:30.
Okay, so right now it's
7:30.
9:50.
Tomorrow morning, you mean?
No, that'd be 9:30 for you then.
Oh,
no, well, it'd be 10:30 for them. They're on
10:30 for me.
10:30.
We'll see you at 10:30.
Yeah, they're living on the wrong coast.
Yeah, we're on Pacific.
Can you kick me out, or do I have to get out here?
Christ, I thought I was.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, I'm going to let you go. I'll talk to you later.
We'll see you in a bit.
See you at SNUFCon, if not before.
Enjoy that pastrami.
Are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there, yeah. Karen and I are going to be there.
Save us some pastrami. Okay.
All right, we got some more guests. Hey, Andrew.
And I don't see Alan yet. Oh, there he
There
is.
we are.
Here he is.
You and me are going to have to talk someday about the idea of shadow.
Yeah, I didn't quite get what you were telling me, but I guess that was the tech problems I was having. But I'm here, so you can see me.
Well, now, first of all, here, I'm going to run through a real quick introduction, and then I'm going to back out and let Tom continue to him and Cliff keep you guys all honest. In fact, so that Tom doesn't get too full of himself. Okay, so we have here Cliff. Everybody knows Cliff. He kind of came in between stuff. But we also have Andrew Roberts, poet laureate of, were you the poet laureate of?
BQ Press. He's the poet laureate of BQ Press.
Oh, yeah, our last poet laureate told me she never wanted to publish with me again. Yeah. So the beauty of editing. And then we have with us, not Adam Troy Castro. You guys with the multiple names are just killing me.
Yeah, we know each other and get along really well, so that we could be good. You don't have us on at the same time. You'd be confusing us.
Oh, you didn't fill in your name tag.
Oh, they all did. If we get rid of any breaking results, you'll be able to see people's names again. And the current tally, according to the Times and the Post, is Harris 99, Trump 188. That's the breaking results.
Yeah, it's still there, but
Okay. But if we get rid of that, then the names reappear.
So Alan, I am. Oh, that wasn't what was causing it, I don't think, but it was. It was. Yep. You're right. I'm wrong. But Alan Dane Shapiro, he has written. He is one of the in Southern Truths, which we just published. We have got. Yeah, wave that book. #1 new release and #1 in absurdist fiction. Now you guys can laugh about absurdist fiction, but absurdist fiction, Catch-22 was an absurdist fiction. But
definitely like an absurdist story. So I'm definitely there.
I'm going.
You might want to read this.
Okay. Oh, my wife just said I might want to read this. Sarah McBride becomes the first openly trans member of Congress. She's the 34-year-old Delaware state senator, and I think she just got elected senator. Was that it?
Yep.
Hot damn.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that said, I'm going to give this back to Sue.
Thank you.
And I'm going to back out and let the masters of conversation talk.
All right. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. But not necessarily 100% sure what's going on politically, but waiting it out because either it's going to be takeover by the Trump people and then we won't know until the lawsuits and the armies fight it out, or it's going to be a loss for Harris, and I don't know one way or the other. The night's not over till it's over.
Yep.
And it probably won't be over tonight.
I'm choosing the path of pragmatism that I figure I'll have lots to write about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous with it. This is, I've also given Bob a story for Retribution and Revenge, and when he says that that could be a very dangerous book and authors could be going to jail, I believe him, and if the results come out one way, I'm hoping they're not, but we've got stories to read if you want to hear them, so it's we just don't know whether they're going to be as relevant either tomorrow or possibly weeks from now.
Well, it becomes an alt history.
Yep. I want it to become an alt history.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be the real.
Speaking of Retribution and Revenge, can you folks hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, Adam Troy Castro was telling us what happened to Rudy Giuliani when he went to the polls. Apparently, he drove to the polls to cast his vote in the car that he's not supposed to be driving anymore, that is supposed to be seized and surrendered to the people that he owes money to. and he was found out there in the car with it.
Stained with hair dye.
I don't know. Yes.
Now there's an American story for you.
Yeah.
Rudy Giuliani changing from a hero to not.
It also tells me you don't need.
Yeah, quite the fall.
He wasn't a hero before 9/11. He was already on the downside of things.
Yeah, but after
He
9/11,
did rise to the occasion for 9/11, though.
Yeah.
He really did.
And I lived in New York in the 80s, and he was relatively well respected. I mean, he was not a buffoon, and now he's a madman. If politics must do that to people.
well, Trumpian politics, certainly.
Politics has done that to a lot of people over the years, more so in the Trump era. But
I liked politics when it was more dashing candidates running around doing things like daring the press to catch them with women in hotels.
Gary Hart.
Absolutely.
Yes, I remember him well.
or saying, "I'm not a crook." I mean, can you imagine Trump saying, "I am not a crook"?
There was a
Only when
very
he's sun
sweet
down.
article, and I forget where I saw it. It might have been in the New Yorker, about what Nixon did while the votes were coming in the last election that he was in.
It was in the Wall Street Journal
the Wall
this morning.
Street Journal this morning. He got the Secret Service to take him to Tijuana to have lunch for the day.
Actually, it wasn't even the Secret Service. He voted and took one Secret Service person, one military person, and one person from his staff, and got in the car and drove to Tijuana because he wanted Mexican food, and called up the mayor and said, "Hey, you want to have lunch with me?"
They had lunch, and then Nixon insisted on driving back across the border himself and went for a pineapple milkshake.
Well,
And
none of
Los
these
Angeles
people
then showed up at the after party for the election.
None of these people have
Very
ever
result.
been fascist. And I think that we have to believe Trump when he says there'll be concentration camps on day one. To be honest, I don't think any of us are in the first round because Hispanics, Muslims, and Arabs are coming first. But that makes it all the more important that those of us who aren't going to be in the first round are ready to rally other people who have whoever they are to try and combat it. And the slogan I've been going with politically is, if you're not an asshole, you're a potential ally. So even people who are not traditionally what we think of as progressive, people who voted Republican all their lives, people who have not a glimmer of understanding of progressive politics or how to use a pronoun, if they come out and tell their lawyer, this is unfair, I don't like it, here's a $20,000 retainer, just get this guy out of jail, they're on my team. I don't care who they were before. They're on my team. If you're not an asshole,
Alan, I am not seeing a lot of that today. A friend of mine in fandom said that he thought a lot of us were getting really hysterical about worrying about Trump, and that he thought if Trump got elected, not much would change. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, well, that's sort of a white, male, wealthy person's perspective. For him, not much will change.
Well, even in Florida,
Stephanie, there's some background noise.
Background noise.
Okay, even in Florida, it's localized because, I'm in a union that's 54% Republican. And when I went and lobbied in Tallahassee, I was able to bend the needle a little bit.
It was too loud. Is that better, guys?
Yeah.
Much better.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
All right. I was able to move the needle a little bit because I was able to talk to some of these people. What's wrong?
That's still coming in. We can hear
Right.
what we have in the background, Stephanie.
See, up in Tallahassee, people don't understand that there is a difference between the Jeb Bush Republicans and the MAGA Republicans and how they act politically. Now, I have to admit, the only reason I was able to bend the needle at all is because I was white, because the other person who came from my district did exactly the same things, didn't even get a meeting. But there is a sense that a big divide between the Bush Republicans and the MAGAs. And in the state Senate, the president was actually one of the Jeb Bush Republicans. She was one of the ones I got to meet with her top legislative aide and a bunch of other legislative aides and bend the needle. And the reason I was able to do that was the first day when I showed up for my first briefing with the head of the AFT in Florida for the political division. He said he's talking about these people in their asshole suits, and he looks at me and says, "You look like them." And I said, "Yeah, why do you think I'm dressed like this?" And he gave me my first committee assignment. And I was able to get through to these people. I was able to move the vote. And we're only 2 seats away, 2 seats to be flipped. Then the combination of Democrats and Jeb Bush Republicans can prevail in there. And to give you an example of one of the things they were proposing this year was abolishing all high school standardized testing. That doesn't sound like a MAGA. But unfortunately, the MAGAs control the House. So if we ever got a point where we had win for governor plus 2 seats flipped, that would be within reason, but it doesn't look like it happened. And I'm really sad that it didn't happen. But that is not entirely MAGA in the state. It's just one of the houses being entirely MAGA. And there's a lot of this where there is reasonableness. There is the possibility of people saying, no, this is just wrong. And I think that's what we have to look for in Trump too, if Trump wins, is people who are willing to say, this hasn't been whatever I was, but this is awful, this is wrong, and I just have to send some money and get my lawyer on it. And if it feels good, the next time they'll do it again. We have enough people doing that, we will make a difference and get some people out of jail. And unfortunately, that's what I agree completely with Bob and his politics, that this is a very scary time, that we have to think about that. And I'd rather not think about that, but
it's fascinating to hear that perspective out of Florida. There's no question that in many ways it's been a microcosm for what's going on nationally. Andrew, did you want to jump in? I thought you were.
I'm fine.
Nope. Stephanie, what are you watching tonight? How are you following the election?
I'm just hopping on to NPR every once in a while and checking the stats there. I'm not watching any of the live coverage because I don't want it to ping my anxiety, if you know what I mean. I have problems with anxiety, and Trump scares me witless. So
yeah, I'm afraid it's going to be a long night. I have to say that with Trump Clinton, we had really strong results by this time, and it's not feeling nearly as definite.
No, but I did remember hearing that this race was closer than the Clinton-Trump of 2016, and that the what the polling said last night on PBS NewsHour was that the gender gap was 10 points higher this time as opposed to 2016. More women are voting for Harris than said they were going to vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Yeah,
I have another thing that I saw that I didn't think I was ever going to see. 2 days ago, I met an undecided voter. There weren't a whole lot of them here in Florida. And the conversation that I had with him, he truly was undecided, was revealing. He told me that the reason why he was considering Trump was inflation, because his kids need to eat and it's terrible. And he understood that in the long run that climate change is going to affect them, that they need to eat right now. And he's seeing all the TV and everything else like that is contradictory and just a buzz and a blur and impossible to understand. So it's basically for him and what's inflation now versus the future. However, what he also said is that the TV is obscured so much that he doesn't know who in the world that Harris is. He doesn't know her as having an independent platform from Biden. And this is where, if those of you who were, a few of you were, like Karen's on my private Facebook page, I guess I can make it public later. About 2 weeks ago, when the vice presidential debate, I was saying very nice things about what Walz is doing, and then I said he screwed up. And the way he screwed up is he didn't use the word refundable, fully refundable for the tax credits. That's essentially giving them money. That's the word he didn't use. And if they had been pushing it, that was the what makes Harris an independent candidate, because she was running on that on the 2016 and election, and she is still running on the centerpiece of her platform. It was not what Joe Biden ever ran on, but with Blur, it's the only argument you could say that Harris is an independent candidate.
Well, she is. Well, Harris is an independent person. She, while she said that she didn't think of anything that has been done during the Biden administration that she regrets. I'm sure she was expressing her opinion, and it was a discussion because Biden isn't somebody to just make a decision. This is what's going to be, and damn.
You're trying to
So,
word by television.
So I can see why she says that she doesn't regret any of the decisions, because it was more of a counselor of advisors to the person,
That's
to
not
the
what
president
I'm saying.
making
What
the
I'm saying
decision.
is the opposite happened. That they threw the Blur for people who could not understand anything else going on the Blur, who didn't have that level of education. This was the argument to make that wasn't being made, that yes, Harris did indeed have some independence from Joe Biden. It's not Biden versus Trump, and that's what I was able to make. And I think the guy ended up voting for Harris. I'm pretty sure he did. But that's what you were seeing, and why you don't have the white working class voting their interests is they're so confused by what's going on that because it's all blur, and there's a lot, not uniformly, but there's a general lack of education, being able to look beyond that. And it's also why I think you're seeing inroads with the Black and Hispanic community, because inflation is important now, and they don't see that there's any other issue. If they made you don't need those issues for people like me. I certainly understand it, but that's how you should have looked at the independent voters who did not, were looking at the present and either can't even see the future and don't regard the future as anything because they're blur with the media, or sort of get the future. And that's why you see, I think there was Black and Hispanic people who were voting, or either not voting or voting for Trump. I think that's why you see the white working class, because it's only the subset that could actually go independent of any of the media and is willing to go independent that can independently vote. And therefore the present is all they saw. And that's why you see, when the only argument was to show them the future and to show them that Harris was independent of Biden. And I managed to do that with one person, even though it was hard. But I think
that was very good of you, that you were able to convince someone that Harris would be the better choice, because as opposed to somebody who wants to be a dictator on day one, anybody. I mean, hell, Reagan would raise Reagan from the death from the grave as a zombie. He'd be better than somebody who's going to be a dictator.
I think if Harris loses tonight, which I hope she doesn't, it's because of failure of language. Trump and his people have the backing of Fox News, and they talk the language of hate and anger and disappointment and fear, which is what drives a lot of working class people. When they blame Harris for the economy, Harris should just turn around and say, when you say economy, what do you mean? When you say inflation, what does that mean to you? When they say the grocery prices are too high, why aren't you talking to your grocer? I work in manufacturing. I'm a materials manager. During the pandemic, I lived and died by the supply chain. And the thing I kept telling my boss is, prices are going to go up when this is over, because everyone wants to make back their money.
Yes.
And that's what we're fighting right now. It's not Biden. It's not Harris. We're fighting greed.
Well, you and I can understand that, so can most of the people listening. The people who can't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Harris, if she had good advisors, she would have addressed that at the beginning and disarmed Donald Trump.
Well, Andrew, she has started talking about groceries. I've noticed in some of the snippets of speech from MSNBC that she said that, yes, I know I buy groceries too. And I think that has But I do agree with you that yeah, she should have started that back in when did she join the race again? I forgot now.
End of July.
Sorry.
July.
End of July. She should have started that in July, saying groceries are too damn high. We need to do something about it.
Well, she also should
to win
have.
up.
It's not that because of inflation that I understand that prices are different, but she could say that this was her signature issue back in 2016. She's always been there. This is who she is, and it probably would have worked given enough lead time. But the other strategy of just being the adult in a room might also have worked. But yes, given enough lead time, it would have worked.
Yeah.
But what's frightening is that how could this be so close? Where's the failure? If half of the people don't hear you or see you,
as the media is making more for everyone who can't independently analyze, which is a lot of.
Well, first off, I have I see on here that Cliff has an announcement, please.
Colorado has been called for Harris, so the current New York Times and Washington Post totals are 109 Harris, 198 Trump,
and that's still very much in the ball game.
Yeah. I mean, their little needle as to who's going to win keeps going more toward Trump, but polls are open on the West Coast.
They haven't counted California. They haven't counted Oregon. They haven't counted all those.
Yeah, they've counted
the West Coast.
Some red states where there are no reported results yet. So, I mean,
well, I've got a question. Does anybody know if Colorado was predicted to be red or blue, or was it a purple?
I'd say blue.
I do not know.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Colorado used to be a purple state. I think it was blue now.
Yeah, I haven't lived in Colorado since the 90s, so
Colorado is one of those heavily split blue cities, red rural, just the way Washington.
There's a lot of those. California is that, right?
Andrew, I wanted to answer your question about why the United States splits 50-50, why there's still so many people. And this is going to sound really depressing, but both through my experiences with people in smaller towns in Washington State and with all my experiences living in Florida for a few years with my mom, so many women I know, sadly, I'll ask them a question and they look around, they say, my husband says, my son says, my pastor says, and they will not tell you what they think. And I've talked with a lot of working class women here in Washington because I do stuff tangentially with the contracting home improvement industry. And a lot of women are working in those fields, some out in the fields, others in the offices. And if I approach those women about the election, they'll just say to me, well, I do whatever my husband tells me. This makes me really, really nervous. We have a woman who cleans our house. And I asked her about the election, and she just went like this. She and also she's from a communist country, and she just doesn't believe that anything will change no matter what she does.
Well, you have to remember that they get punished because I grew up in a small town, evangelical and everything. And yeah, they can't, they get socially punished. They could get, estranged from their church. Their pastor would talk to their husband about, you need to control your wife. And this is seriously still going on in the United States because I've seen it. I've experienced it. My ex-husband, somebody approached him and told him that I talk too much.
Well, I have a couple of hippie friends who moved into a more rural part of Washington, and they're super liberals. And they raised a daughter, and she married a guy from a conservative farming family. And the election came around, and she said to her dad, the weirdest thing happened. Her father-in-law collected all of their mail-in ballots and voted them himself and mailed them.
Head of the household. Oh, go, Andrew. Sorry.
Yeah. So the father just took everyone's ballots in the household, filled them out the way he wanted them, and mailed them. And this is what he always did. Well, when my friend, the father-in-law, heard about this, he called up the guy and said, this is illegal. This is federal elections tampering, and he let him have it. And the response was, oh, well, next year your daughter can vote however she wants.
So, two things. One, I want to address a comment from Dale in his comment, which is about my disconcerting analysis of the working class. I'm about as working class as you can get. I started on a production line at the company I work at. I've been there for 42 years. I mean, I am. My collar is tattooed to my skin blue. So if I speak of my own, and then
that sounds like a new poem you're composing in real
probably.
time.
And then as far as evangelical Christians, I hear what you're saying. We ain't all like that because I'm an evangelical Christian. And my biggest fear with regards to Trump is his support by Christian nationalists. Because if the Christian nationalists get in, you won't have Christians or patriotism. You'll have the Taliban.
Yeah, you'll have the American Taliban. I only speak of my experience. Yeah, obviously, you were more
I know some very strong Christian women who can out argue me in a heartbeat. With strong opinions, which is very good. So,
have you seen the latest issue of the article on the of the Christian nationalism and the latest issue of Mother Jones? That is there's arguments there that I've never seen before. In Florida, I think things are really complex.
Well, Christian nationalism started with the anti-integration of schools.
Yes,
it goes back to that. The same people who started it. But anyway, I'm sorry to take you off on the tangent.
Well,
all right.
We can probably. Sorry, Ellen.
No,
Andrew. Let's just leave it at this. Everyone can only talk for their own experiences. I am very happy to know that there are evangelicals that are not sexist assholes like what I grew up in. Yay!
But there are some who are.
Yeah, I experienced them.
Because...
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Kate, I don't think I've met you before.
I don't believe I've met you.
Good to meet you. Where are you?
I am currently in my friend's bedroom in Benicia, California.
Very cool. I'm up in Seattle.
Oh, nice.
Kate is another writer and editing a forthcoming speculative fiction anthology on dinosaurs.
Ooh.
So, submissions are open.
Space dinos, because space dinos.
Did I meet you at Baycon?
Ooh.
Yes, you did.
That's okay.
Good memory.
Yeah. So
I've had Kate on a few times. She's awesome.
We're sitting here with a bunch of our friends all freaking out. So, yeah.
Now you're online with a bunch of people too.
When you're somewhere like California or Washington, you kind of sit there helplessly freaking out because what can you do?
Yeah.
Yep. Minnesota's that way too.
Done it. Right. There we go.
Right. Yeah, because Minnesota's been a blue state for so long that no one cares. So yeah, no, it's a thing.
Yeah.
But we have great swag.
Yes.
Woo! Oh, I needed to get my I'm stepping away from the chair. I'll be back in just a moment.
Very nice.
Well, I think I'm going to head out. I just wanted to drop in for a little bit tonight. So.
Well, it's great to see you, Andy.
Thanks for putting up with me.
Yeah. Well, you know.
I thought you said some great things.
Yeah.
Thank you guys both.
Work on that poem about the tattooed blue collar there.
That's just not dark enough for me.
Well, make it, black ink. I don't know, whatever.
Blue.
Black collar.
You guys have a good evening. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
How do I leave? Oh, there it is.
Bye-bye.
I want to do something incredibly optimistic and ask people, if we assume that Harris is going to win and Trump is going to lose and miraculously he's going to accept it, what do you think will happen to 40-year-old J.D. Vance if Trump loses? What will Vance's political future be? Will we have him coming back?
Probably lose the Senate race.
I hear he's going to become a furniture salesman.
Bob.
A couch potato, maybe? I don't know. Oh, by the way, Stephanie, great to see you again.
Kate, we've had a request for a little more information about how people can submit to the Dinosaurs in Space anthologies.
Yes, please. I wanted that information too.
I would recommend you go to badfairy.com, badphairi.com, and on the stuff page there will be connections and email links and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you to my partner for putting up my website. It's awesome.
Harris is now up to 112 against 198 Donald Trump, according to both Washington Post and New York Times.
By the way, I just typed out a long comment in the private chat. I hope it went into the public chat also. It's
No, the private chat doesn't go public, but I could put it there.
Make it go there. I think it's something independent of what anyone else had said.
Yeah, I'm not currently logged into the Facebook.
Hold on, I am. I'm going to throw it in.
But I can say the one thing about California is that no, we do not necessarily have the same choice to make because we're a blue state. But we also have the responsibility of like pushing stuff forward so that other people can go, oh, hey, that's a good idea. So as we look at our local
state ballots. Yeah.
Yep. As we look at our local races, you know, as we go, so goes parts of the nation. And so we need to be cognizant of that as well.
So we had a bunch of state ballot propositions, and I voted for like judge and Board of Education and county supervisors and all this stuff. So and the good thing is it's relatively easy to search for articles if you just put the name of the office and the names of the candidates. You'll get like articles comparing the candidates, interviewing them, discussing their philosophies. And, you know,
there's a big disaster in Florida coming up exactly along those lines. Amendment 1 was if you voted for it, then every school board, school superintendent race was partisan. That would be the first time that was it. If you voted against it, it was nonpartisan. It was very hard for the average person to understand that one. And the Democratic Party locally in Florida is an absolute disaster. The only thing I've ever seen here organized well is Bernie's campaign when I canvass for him. It's just they didn't get out there and get the message.
Yeah, Washington had a confusing initiative on our ballot this year. Yeah, do you remember which one, Karen? It had to do with carbon tax.
Yes. Somebody's trying to roll back the carbon tax.
Yeah.
But it was like the positive of the negative of the positive. And it was really tough.
Well,
I
it
hate
was
it when
very,
they do that.
it was very simple.
Do that on purpose.
It's an initiative.
Yeah.
The Republican Party, the MAGA branch, said, what is the worst possible thing we can do to defund the authority, the Washington government, to prevent them from enforcing regulations and doing things and keeping us safe? For example, right now we don't allow police officers to do high-speed chases. Without
that's
permission.
been
And,
okay. That's been rectified.
Do what?
That has been modified. Our state
As far as the earlier
legislature.
point one, I just Googled Amendment 1 lost in Florida. It's now going to be partisan races. You have to run as a Republican to win for any school board for superintendent, which is very distinct from anywhere else. And it really is something there was room to fight for, but the disorganization in the Florida Democratic Party meant they didn't get the word out. And it's really solely due to that complete disorganization in Florida. And I think there's a lot of things going on that could have been different if the Florida Democratic Party wasn't such a complete disaster. The only time everything ever worked was when I canvassed for Bernie. I've seen just complete awful organization every other time, and that's what I'm seeing here, and it's showing.
Okay. I hate to do this, but I'm going to, Alan, I'm going to swap one Floridian out for another.
Okay.
There's a law of conservation of Floridians.
Yeah.
Oh, Adam. Adam
Hello.
Troy's back. Hi.
Welcome back. Thank you,
So,
Alan.
Alan, but before I go, let me say, despite the fact that you decided to use the Witness Protection Program approach to the podcast, thank you very much for coming, and we appreciate it, and it was good hearing from you. And you have two stories.
Yes, I do.
And Southern Truths, and one of them is a wonderful story about the horrors of immigration issues. Not the horrors of immigration itself, but the barriers it places on people's rights and the ability to exist. And then the other one is one I really loved, which is what happens when a New Jersey superhero comes in and goes to Arkansas to be a.
There weren't any jobs, and I thank you for publishing that, because you're the only one I know of who would publish something that over the top.
Dude, Over the Top is BQ Press's middle name. I mean, did you know we've actually published stories by Adam Troy Castro?
Yes, I do. We're friends.
I
think I'm crazier.
Yeah, I think it was Adam Troy was in our first book. Adam, you were in Alternative Truths, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I think you used an old Facebook post of mine.
Yes, I did. What it was
Orange Mandius, I called it.
It was a page and a half of text.
Yeah.
Karen?
Yeah.
Could you read that?
The Adam Troy Castro piece?
Yeah, because I want people to know that when you pick up a BQ Press book, I want you to know what to expect. Now, remember,
hold on a second.
You don't want Adam to read it?
It's right here. Here we go.
We'll have a copy immediately.
This is called, ready to go? This is
Yeah.
Q&A by Adam Troy Castro. Question, President Trump, do you have any comments on the recent discovered snuff footage of you strangling a small child to death with your bare hands? Answer. Well, first of all, I thank you all for coming here. I really coming off the greatest electoral college win of all time. There's never been a more popular president ever. Children are good. Absolutely. Fabulous. But the country's a big mess. A total disaster. Murder in the streets, entire neighborhoods in flames, boroughs in New York being swallowed up by flaming cracks in the earth. Chicago, very bad. Awful. Obama didn't do a damn thing to stop it. That's why nobody, literally nobody anywhere voted for Hillary. Children, you have to ask who's paying the people who took the footage. I have children myself. Ivanka, look at her. I would have sex with her right now on this podium if I wasn't her father. I think children, with my success in business, a model for the things that make this country great, and people who otherwise say are a big joke, a bunch of losers. Why don't you ask Rosie O'Donnell that? Another loser. Next question.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we got there is it says, I wanted Adam Troy Castro's Facebook post, which, yes, so he became our highest paid per word writer in the entire history of BQ Press. But he told the people what they were getting when they picked that book up. and so when they did preview of the book, first words on their face was Adam Troy Castro words. And that book hit the bestseller list. So, Adam, thank you. And another noteworthy person from that, our very first review, although it was only 4 stars, came from Stephanie Weipert. And she wrote the first review. And so that's how it all started. So you guys are all wonderful people. And I love the fact that you're all here. Now, this is where I go back, and that's where Stephanie's first story for us appeared,
Yes.
isn't it? Where she set forth the premise of people going to jail for their political views in a way
Sure.
that's chilling and based on being a dictator at day one is prophetic.
Sadly, yes. It was not supposed to be prophetic.
That whole goddamn book was prophetic. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Sadly.
I can only. That was a
Hey, that
very.
makes me-
Anyway, this is where I go away, and I'm going to take you with me there, Alan.
Okay. I'm typing a text that I hope can also be Karen can put in the public text. But
Okay, let me go look.
All righty. Welcome back, Adam. I hope you enjoyed the dramatic reading of your piece.
I did very much.
Actually, better than that, Adam, was your story in shoot. It was we were in the same anthology, but there was a story about if human women when they got pregnant went glass and
It's this
got
one.
invisible. Which one was it? Because
Post
yes,
alternative.
Post row.
what is the title of that again? I know the glass sentence takes place in it. Is part of the title.
It's one of your unusual titles, Adam,
Yeah,
learned
well,
the
the
best.
reason
with the
Yeah.
wheeze of a glass sentence.
With a wheeze of a glass sentence. Yeah.
I like that.
that story. I read that and it gave me nightmares. Good job.
It's considered to be one of the best stories B Cubed has ever published.
Well,
Yeah.
It is really
I'm
amazing.
gratified to hear that. I'm thinking of others that I enjoyed by others, but I'm always happy. One of the first thing that I do when I get any anthology that I'm in is I read it, or any magazine. I read every other story just to make sure I didn't shit the bed. You know, and it's
Well, there's a reason mine always end up in the back. Okay, I'm always in the later third.
my
because
my wife, my late wife. There was an anthology I was in. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a story I was proud of. And then every other story in the book was a piece of crap. Not BQ Press, but it was that particular thing. Every other story in the book was a piece of crap. And I mentioned this to Judy and says, you need to be less impressed with yourself for selling to them. Maybe your story is with them. But my wife was always could be trusted to tell the hard truths.
Oh, my Southern True Story is in the middle somewhere where you won't notice it, so it's okay.
Yeah.
I had someone today order a copy of the book from me. She's boycotting Amazon. So I sent her one of my copies just to get the Memphis story, Cliff.
Oh,
that's cool.
Tom, you just
Okay.
mailed that
Yep.
to her.
No, it's
nice.
It's packaged and going out tomorrow.
Where is it going? What state?
Chicago. Where is it going?
Arkansas, I believe.
Arkansas. All right. Well,
really?
I will happily sign a copy for that person if she still wants it signed after she's read my story.
I'll check with her.
My personal favorite of anything I've ever written for B Cube Press is in this anthology, which was edited for B Cube by Manny Frischberg. And I told Manny that I could write a story about Trump that would make people cry and sympathize with him. And I did. I wrote a story about Trump in the nursing home. It's called Bad Memories, 2032, and it's about his daughter trying to get him dressed to take him to the dedication of the Trump Presidential Library in Midtown. And he thinks he's still president. He is complaining because the woman who's taking care of him, the nurse, isn't sexy looking enough. He thinks he just had lunch with a prime minister. And the doctor comes in to check on him and he says to Trump, "Who's the president?" And Trump says, "Ha, ha, ha," very funny, because he thinks he still is. And it was based on my experience with my father having had dementia and being in a nursing home. And I really portrayed Trump and his daughter in a very sympathetic light. She keeps trying to take him to the library and he says to her, "Can't we just go over to New Jersey and play a few rounds of golf?"
I have to share a very ugly story for a second.
Oh dear!
Which is that my father had dementia, and he fortunately left us when we were still able to relate to him as a human being, But he had dementia, and he's sundowned. He's sundown. He was halfway easy to deal with during the day, but at night the effort of thinking just sundown. And one thing that he used to just wake my mother up in like 3 o'clock in the morning is that Donald Trump was stalking through the apartment.
That is terrifying.
And as near as we could figure it out, it was because they had attended an event at the local Trump hotel, and the word Trump got into his head, and I thought that was horrifying. Sometimes but that's one of the things that happened. The story goes nowhere, but it's just a weird detail that's one of the things that he would sundown with.
That would be a terrible thing to be stuck thinking of.
Yeah, but so that's just one of those things, and now I'm thinking of that, and I'm saying, I mean, I'm hoping that at 3 o'clock in the morning, Trump is thinking my dad is stalking him in his apartment. I mean, that's just the hope that
karmic justice.
I would do that.
I grew up in Washington, D.C. Many of our neighbors were Congress people and senators. I went to school with a bunch of people whose parents were in the cabinet, Lyndon Johnson, in the Johnson cabinet. And I was very used to politics. And I also lived in the summer at Cape Cod. And commuting back and forth, my dad, who was with NASA, often flew up on one of the Kennedy planes. And if all I can say is if Bobby Kennedy and Jack Kennedy had lived to see what Robert Kennedy is doing right now, I mean, that's my generation. And I look at the guy, and he is more dangerous and crazier than the presidential candidate.
He's going to go wild on health. That was what Trump said about it.
I mean, yeah, that was a big shock to me and deeply disturbs me.
Well,
the day I heard about the bear, I thought he was finished. But
big shocks and deeply disturbing. Trump is up to Harris is at 112. Trump is up to 210 for the New York Times or 204 for the Washington Post.
You got to realize that the battleground states have not all been called, and that there is a blue wall down the West Coast.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't call us the left coast for nothing.
Yeah, and so that's going to be. I mean, it was always going to be true. Trump wins more states. The Republicans do win more states. I mean, what the electoral map always looks like when it's not a blowout is New England always wins for the Democrats. A couple of the Iron Belt states win for the Democrats. Sometimes there's a Southern surprise, and it's always the West Coast. But in the meanwhile, there's all this red shit in between. And that's
the plain
always,
states.
So it always does happen first. It's very dramatic. The Republicans are beating first.
Yep. Well,
I just want to know why we have not figured out how to attach a dynamo to about a quarter of the graves at Arlington, because we could power all of Delmarva with that.
So, Kate, I don't know if you remember, but at one point I wrote a story in which the desperate Democrats hold a seance to bring back Molly Ivins, Adlai Stevenson III,
I like
and
that.
Walter Cronkite in hopes that they can do something. This is while Trump is in the White House.
How come I have never read this and I want it right now?
It's in this book, and it was also done as a radio play.
No!
But what happens is they don't want to go back. So then they all feel like they did what they could in their lifetimes. So they go to the LBJ Ranch in the afterlife, and Lyndon Johnson goes back with J. Edgar Hoover, and they proceed to haunt the White House.
Oh,
that's a funny story. I love that story.
I love it.
I lived in D.C. I did a huge amount of research on the White House, on the fact that Nixon took out the special showers that Johnson had installed. Johnson had showers with all these sprayers so he could get his balls clean. I'm serious.
Yeah, I know.
It was hysterical, and Johnson succeeds in causing Trump to flip. So maybe it's the ghost of Johnson that we're seeing the effects of.
Wow.
I just
wrote a story
point out
called-
we all saw that cat mess up.
I wrote a story, and I can't
I
remember the
meant to do
title
that.
right now, but I wrote one in which every president discovers on their first full day in office at night, the Secret Service comes in, takes away the spouse, hides away the spouse. It's called Night of the Living POTUS is the title of the story. And you can look it up. It's available online. It's available as a podcast online. And Night of the Living POTUS is the president of the United States, the current president of the United States, the most recent one, whoever it turns out to be, is basically haunted by all the dead presidents, one at a time, come after him.
Ooh.
And until he successfully defeats them all, he cannot be president.
Okay, I'm waiting for the sequel with Night of the Living SCOTUS.
Well, that would be good. But, I can tell you that every few years I just update the story.
So, but that's a really nice segue into our next guest, Nancy Jane Moore, who,
Hello,
in addition to being a brilliant writer, with a number of works out. Oh, she just vanished.
I'm here.
Bob.
Works out from. Bob, can you fix this? Yeah, there she is down there. Don't make me so big. I'm not that important. Make Nancy big. There you go. Not only a number of books and stories out with Aqueduct Press and other places, but she is a retired lawyer, and she was a lawyer in Texas for a long time. So I asked her on to talk about legal stuff and the implications of, like, there's ballot measures in case the Republicans win. Like in California, there's a ballot measure to enshrine abortion right into law, and like how things could go depending on how the election goes. So welcome, Nancy.
Well, thank you. When I agreed to do this, I was considerably more calm about the election because I wasn't paying close attention, having already voted. And now I've been watching the news and I'm nervous as hell. So,
So we have a lot of potential legal scenarios to discuss.
Yeah, you have one in particular. I noticed that the Florida abortion thing failed by 3 percentage points from what I can tell.
California's got one, but we won't get results for another at least 12 minutes when the polls close.
Well, that's in California. Some of that's not a big problem. The issues in frankly, the issues in California are not that. The issues in California are
the gay marriage and things like that.
The gay. I strongly doubt that. I would assume the same-sex marriage will pass, despite the fact that some people in my local area who are anti-democratic, although pretending that they're not Republicans, came out against it. But I think the issues that are scarier in California are probably, well, I know we have some local here in Oakland that are in recalls, and likewise the one on rent control. There's some other things that I think are likely to be a problem, but I would expect the big issues to go well in California from my perspective. I mean, obviously, marriage equality and abortion rights and so forth are very important to me. But I think the Florida abortion thing failing is the first time that abortion's been on the ballot since Roe was overturned, and that it's failed statewide. And of course, it was required to have a 60% vote.
Oh. That's how it failed.
yeah, it was required. It had to have a supermajority essentially.
Yeah, so they did that on purpose so it would fail, because every other time that I know of that abortion has been on the ballot, it has passed with over around 60%. So if it missed, it probably, you said 3%.
Yeah, it was 57%. That was let
Yeah.
me qualify that's the last one I saw. So
Mhm.
I don't know, but
But that's the entire reason we're seeing all of these things being requiring supermajorities like that.
right, exactly. I mean, it's interesting. I saw somewhere earlier somebody on social media saying, "Well, with what's going on with the election, do you think the Electoral College should be suspended, got rid of?" And I thought the Electoral College should be abolished since I was old enough to know what it was. But it's got to take a constitutional amendment. It's going to take a huge vote. So,
but just going with the popular vote has problems as well. I mean, if you just want our population centers to decide, if New York and California and Texas are fine, and nobody really cares what Alaska and Hawaii and what those people vote, because regardless of how they vote, the population of New York State is so much greater.
Well, I'd have a lot more empathy about that if it wasn't exactly the other way around right now, and they really don't care that we don't have a voice necessarily.
Well, we have a voice.
It's also the small states don't actually have a voice because of the Electoral College. It's still the places with all the people that are going to have the power of it.
They make the deciding vote. We are safe states for Washington. My state's Washington State. It's a safe blue state. The Democrats can count on us, which doesn't mean we don't have a voice, but we're not the deciders. So, but
well, I feel like I have to say I've lived my life I grew up in Texas, spent a lot of time in Texas. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a very long time, and I now live in California. And frankly, I don't feel like my voice has been heard in any of these elections because everybody takes it for granted. And I'm kind of tired of that. People come to California for money. They don't come to California for votes.
No. They come to Washington State for money too, because Walls was up here in Mercer Island at a fundraiser, a private fundraiser that nobody could go to unless you were invited, and they invited the people who could give them millions of dollars. So I understand it. There's problem. I just don't know how to fix it, because just jumping to a popular vote, I don't see that as an improvement, really.
Well, it would have made a huge difference in the Supreme Court if we had the 2000 election and the 2016 election. Decided by the popular vote. That to me alone is sufficient reason to go to the popular vote.
Sure, but it'll never happen. It'll never happen. I don't think.
I don't see it. It's not going to happen so long as we're in this state. The level of division right now. That's for sure.
There's a YouTuber I follow who's an attorney. He's a California attorney, Legal Eagle, I think is what his channel is called, and he did something on the Electoral College, and I remember him mentioning that there's been like 200 proposed legislature bills to try to address the subject, but it never goes anywhere.
I don't see it going anywhere. That's for sure.
Well, it's sort of like there's a number of people who are fairly loud who say, well, we'd really like to make military smaller, except that there's a base in every state, and it's a source of jobs, it's a source of revenue, it's a source of guaranteed revenue from the feds, And so no one, like everybody just kind of agrees that the military should be smaller, but they won't do it for their state. So we're kind of stuck. It's the same thing, I think, for this.
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
it may be
it's not.
it
It's
may be
not
a positive nationally, but we're not going to do it for each state because it lessens our power.
Yes. Well, it's also not just the revenue, but it's the demands that we send our military to go fix that problem over there. Oh, there's an earthquake in Haiti a few years ago.
Oh
We
yeah.
sent aid to go help them. That costs money, guys, and that's part
Oh
of
yeah.
what we use our
There's-
military for.
There's nothing like Europe creating a problem over 1,000,000 years and then telling us that it's our problem to go solve. Loving it.
Chewing
Oh,
off-
I love your attitude.
Harlan called it
Kate.
chewing off their own leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always, he says Europe is always chewing off its own leg.
Oh yeah.
I think you can add America to that now most of the time.
Yes,
It's a
unfortunately.
little odd that the people who are sure that the leopards aren't going to eat their face are the ones who were chewing on their own leg. So yeah, okay. Yeah.
It does not look good, folks. But I'm hoping I'm wrong. It does not look good.
Well,
It doesn't-
we knew that it would start in the red and then it would go more blue.
Yeah, the
we
problem
were
is
talking
that all
about.
the
So-
swing states, including Pennsylvania, are now leaning toward Trump.
Yeah, but
Georgia looks like it was-
before we let me put it like this: I can't face it if we're going to be negative about it. So I mean, I don't have it in me to be negative to accept it. One of the things that we have to consider is that almost all the places that are still very much up in the air, plus all the places that come in out here in the West, are places where there's a lot of slow counting going on. So they're putting off the counting. You know, sometimes they're late on the. Oops! Did you lose
Yeah.
me? Or
No, you're
No,
here.
I still see you, Nancy.
okay, I was just something froze for a while. I just think we can't count on any of those states staying the way they are because there's a lot of late counting that goes on in those places, and it's
Yeah.
done that in the past.
Yeah, a lot of that. I was hearing that a lot of the slow counting came from things that Republicans did because they don't want fast counting. They want this to be as slow and ponderous and chaotic as they can manage to get because it helps them when they lose. I'm going to be positive here. We're not going to lose our democracy tonight. When they lose, they have an excuse for the lawsuits, and this election was stolen from us. It's
Oh yeah.
yeah. So
That's gonna
pretty much,
happen.
yeah, pretty much. I was hearing from all of the left-leaning news sources I could trust that don't expect a result tonight. You may not get it for a week or a month.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pink on the map in the center of the country, the Michigan and Pennsylvania, and then to the west of there, and none of the Democratic strongholds are seriously reporting in yet.
They're
they're-
not going.
Polls
to.
are still open for
Well,
another
not in
minute and a half.
It's 5 to 8 on the West Coast.
Okay,
So
somewhere
don't-
there's an echo.
Yeah, I'm getting my echo back. Is this me?
We could try muting one.
Whoever has their phone and their computer on needs to turn one of them off.
Now it's quiet.
No, I'm not hearing it.
Now it's frozen.
Was that an actual? Just to be sure, did somebody just say now it's frozen twice? Or was that an echo? It is an echo. All right.
I'm gonna jump in for a while.
I'm giving my phone away.
Okay, Hey, Kate, it's you. I'm sorry. You have
I don't even have a computer. I just have my phone. But it's cool. I've been on for like a half an hour. I can head out. You guys, it's been great. Thanks a bunch. And I'll talk to you later.
Glad you could join us,
See ya.
Kate.
Nice seeing you, Nancy.
Before you go,
Likewise. We
Before
need to
you
see
go.
it closer.
I want to get this off my chest. It's looking like we are. Well, here, hold on. Let me mute you for a second, Kate.
Okay, before you do that, Bob, we just got some West Coast results. So we're now 179 for Kamala and 214 for Donald.
They're getting closer.
Obviously California. Who else?
Washington, but not Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, Washington,
That's the
Oregon
New
are
York Times.
gimmies.
She needs
and
North
this-
Carolina. She needs Pennsylvania.
Yep.
You know, and
Pennsylvania and North Carolina got me worried. What's the answer there?
Still up in the air. North Carolina, the New York Times is saying very likely Trump. Pennsylvania is leading Trump. Wisconsin is leaning Trump. Michigan is leaning Trump. Georgia, very likely Trump. Arizona, leaning Trump. So
Okay.
the Times has him like winning every battleground state. But again, it ain't over till the last vote's counted.
Okay, well, it may not be over till the fat lady sings. I've been to a couple operas, and I know she's gonna sing. I just talked to my wife while you guys were there. I went in and had a conversation. BQ Press, I asked her if she wanted to quit because we can say what we want to about this new world we're about to walk into. But when the man who's going to control the NSA is putting Robert RFK Jr. in charge of healthcare, probably putting Stephen Miller in charge of Homeland Security, and that
Don't forget
ditzy
Bannon.
judge from that's kept him out of prison in charge of the Attorney General, if not being on the Supreme Court. We have to accept the fact that we're about to be publishing in a whole new world where under English, I think the lawyer here might help us, but under English common law, truth is not a defense against libel. And that has long been something that Trump has fought for. And if all of a sudden that changes, publishing of the BQ Press could be a bad day for you. But I will tell you right now, allow me to make the official announcement. I've danced around whether or not we're going to publish Retribution and Revenge. I'll be working to get my editors lined up and get the write-up for it put out on Moksha here in the next few days. So what I want to be able to say is that when Donald J. Trump gets inaugurated, which is beginning to look like there's a 70-30 chance he will be, there will be Retribution and Revenge will be hitting the streets. So I will understand fully if any one of you don't want to submit, because I actually had people decline to do this podcast tonight out of fear.
Does
Okay.
anybody have an answer? Because I have one.
I have one as well, but you can go first, Adam, if you'd like.
Okay. The sad fact of my life right now is that I have stage 4 colon cancer, and there's a very strong possibility that I can be cured, that I can be cured of that, and that I will never have it again. Right now, the colon cancer reached my my liver. It's very weird, but if colon cancer appears in your liver, it's still colon cancer. But that's the explanation. And my answer to that is that I am facing 2 futures. One in which Trump gets into office and succeeds in removing the Obamacare Act. Okay, in which case he's trying to murder me. Okay, and one in which it's moot, because as originally told, I have, I don't have 10 years, I have 2 or 1 or something like that. It terrifies me because I am terrified for the future, but I may not be in that future. So I don't give a fucking shit. Excuse me, I did it last time. Only I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn about the dangers involved in writing things. I am just not. Because to write compromised stuff right now is just giving up just as I'm reaching the finish line, and I'm not going to. So I am so yeah, please reprint any anti-Trump stuff I did. Reprint it,
Yes.
point an arrow at my name, and give my goddamn address. That's my answer.
Thank you, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When back before I was even published in anything, I had been told, don't get political, it'll hurt your career. But then the Orange Ego got on the stage and I went, oh my God, I can't just sit here and watch and do nothing. And I thought about it and I made a decision back then that if it hurts my career, it's worth it to fight for my country. I can't, I'm not a soldier. I can't get in and do that stuff, but I can speak up on social media and I can write and I can use my words and I can do what I can, damn it. So, and that's my decision. And I've been that way. And fortunately, Bob, the most awesome editor, has accepted some of my pieces so that I could do what I can to fight against fascism. So yes, Bob, I'm with you if you want to continue doing this. They're going to come after me anyway. I might as well help you if you're doing it.
Well,
next.
I don't know how that's going to happen. It may just be minor harassment, but I know this. When I had 2 carloads of thugs pull up into my yard and rip all my campaign signs down out of my yard, it was a sobering night. Just to remember that after you watch that, one sheriff in Ohio said, I'm not going to be there to help any Democrats if they're having trouble. Or the other one who said, I want to make a list of who all's got the campaign signs out. We're living in a different world than we grew up in. We grew up under the Warren Court, guys. You know, we grew up under an America where we could agree to disagree. I just say hallelujah, because I look at it this way. I'm a 66-year-old diabetic with I don't have colon cancer, but I'm my life expectancy is such that I'm ready to I picked my path towards the rest of my life, and my path for the rest of my life is the resistance, for the lack of a better word.
Bob, Adam, Troy, and I were having a discussion on here. I seriously looked 4 years ago into moving to Europe because I'm fluent in Italian and pretty good in French, and I want to live somewhere warmer. And in the 4 years since I began seriously investigating us moving there, those countries have gone majorly to the right.
Yes.
Politically, I don't see an advantage to being in Italy, which is corrupt on top of right wing. And France is extremely strange. The only advantage I would get from moving to Europe is really good healthcare.
Yeah. Brexit was just one of the early signs of them going fascist.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not leaving. This is my country. I got my wonderful little veterans, whatever that's worth. But guys, thank you. But here, now let me ask you a couple questions, because here's the beautiful thing about it. We're all writers. I think I don't now. Jane, I don't know if you're a writer or a lawyer or both. Or...
She's both. Nancy Jane is
Okay.
a lawyer.
Well, I look forward to seeing your submission.
Oh,
But,
yes.
If you want to, but and I don't mean to make this sound overly dramatic, but I have also read. I read history a lot, and countries turn on a dime. So that said, think about what you want to publish, because I want to publish it. And here, just a second here. I'm pulling up a file. There we go. Because I was tired of looking like I was sitting in the dark. Well, you see, when I set up my lighting, I had a file on the screen that had a white background. And when I took it off, it was like crazy. So,
well, we're all sitting here in the dark for the next 2 hours.
Yeah. I have enjoyed the conversations mightily. Now, I did miss one thing, Jane. Are the abortion rights initiatives passing?
Failed in Florida.
Except for Florida, that's the only one that I've seen that has not passed.
Well, it makes me feel better that Florida needed a supermajority.
Now, is that one of the states that changed the rules after the election started?
I don't know that. Does anybody else? They may have always needed that. Though a lot of states have supermajority provisions already in the law for various kinds of constitutional amendments and things. So,
well, and I think that's a good idea for the most part, because you don't want knee-jerk reactions to emotional decisions. Because right now, I don't want to see a constitutional amendment that will make the life of young squirrels in costumes more important than. I take it you guys haven't been following the. There's some squirrel that bit somebody that got put down.
Yep.
That they're making it a case against. That it's somehow a civil liberty issue.
Between the squirrel or the person? I'm confused.
The squirrel has every right to bite anyone it wants to.
No, it was some other animal that they took and they took and they euthanized.
Oh, I thought they did the squirrel.
I think they kept the squirrel. It was some other animal. It's not a story I followed closely, but I do remember it was some other animal.
All I know is that Moo Dang is really cute.
Right.
Trying
Yeah.
to bite people.
Well, actually, we were talking about stories there, and the only reason I might not be sending you any stories is because I am starting to discover that I can either work on a novel or I can work on short fiction, but I don't seem to do both at the same time. And I'm desperately trying to finish the sequel to the novel. So whether I get, although I rant sufficiently over at the Treehouse Writers blog from political matters that it's not any kind of decision to be safe that keeps me from sending a story out. That's for sure. I've already blown that.
Well, I will tell you this. This is not where everybody sitting here is under the gun to put me a story in, because I'm not accepting the obligation to publish the story you send me. We go
Right.
through the review process. I just was saying I'm making the decision that says, because I've given this a lot of thought over the last few weeks. It says, is this something that I want to keep doing? And maybe this is the last one. I don't know, but I know that one thing, it needs to be done. And Karen said it one time 8 years ago. Karen said something along the lines of, when reading Alternative Truths, she said, this is a book that should be in every school library, or somebody said that. And I think, I thought it was Karen.
It sure wouldn't be now.
But
No.
But I just will go with the concept that we need to not let ourselves be intimidated or frightened.
No.
And I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the options that are facing our country right now. A withdrawal from NATO.
Yeah,
Imagine
that's going to
if-
kill NATO.
Yeah, imagine if not Eisenhower, but Roosevelt had joined with Emperor Hirohito and Hitler and Mussolini. What would have
We'd
happened
be
to Europe?
speaking German right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the level.
Well, you would. Some of us wouldn't be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
level of
I'm
history
so
we're facing.
lucky. My last name is German. Oh, God, help me.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we were, it's that, and without a Congress to stand up, and our Congress has shown all the backbone of Lindsey Graham, with Congress, with senators like Lindsey Graham, that man would put on a Nazi outfit in a heartbeat, if that's what
So
it
would
took.
Johnson. So would
Well-
Speaker Johnson.
Oh, Speaker. Well, I mean, he's a Christian dominionist, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tommy,
he's scary. He's scary. He's scary because he's got that cover. He looks like a nice, reasonable guy, except that he's not.
Oh, no.
He's an
J.D. Vance has the same thing.
Yeah.
I
But I want to move away from this negative talk, because the state, all the states that you're saying are, well, they look like they might be leading to Trump or whatever. There's a whole lot of votes not in those states yet, and a whole lot of votes from the population areas of those states are not complete. And I've just been looking at the Guardian's map on Pennsylvania and Michigan, and so I don't think we can make assumptions. In fact, for that matter, even North Carolina, there's a whole lot of votes not in yet in places like Raleigh. Now, that doesn't mean that some of these things will not go bad. I'm not saying that, but I'm also thinking we shouldn't be giving up at this point. It's still a long ways to go, because those are always going to be the places that we're going to be really close. And the votes that are on our side are always the ones that come in late. We've got people, I don't know, some of the states, this is one of those things that vary state to state. But one of them is counting absentee vote, when you can count the absentee votes, when you can count the mail-in votes, and so forth. So in California, one of the reasons California, at least on a statewide thing that's going to be obvious like this, is they already counted all the mail-in votes they got. I mean, my vote got counted a week ago. And I think that's true in several other states, but it's not true in all states. In some states, they can't start counting some of that until after the polls have closed.
Including
Again, the
Pennsylvania.
Republicans work.
yeah, but the swing states are showing pretty clear.
But they're not showing that clear. That's the point I'm
No.
trying to make here.
Yeah,
They're not
and the
showing
other
that
thing,
clear.
Nancy,
Well,
may I help, please? Bob?
There's hope.
Yes, there is hope, because one of the things like I said, I wasn't exaggerating. all of my legitimate, trusted, left-leaning sources were saying the Republicans are doing this to mess with the election. The Republicans are doing this with messing with the count. They're doing this, they're doing that in every swing state. They focused on the swing states and they tried to make it as slow and cumbersome and chaotic as possible. So we're not going to know tonight. She's got a really good point, because one of the things they did is they focused on blue districts. Some of the blue districts, they focused on them to make it so that they would be the absolute slowest in the state, to try to sow discord. So yeah, she's got a point. Those haven't come in yet, and it could flip the state.
It could be. I hope you're right.
Well, Nancy has a point. We shouldn't give up before it's all said and done. She's right.
No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't. But I am feeling it, and I can't help but feeling it, because it's such a life or death thing. You know,
It is. It is.
a life or death thing, in general, but very personally to me.
This
You
is
The
My
Times has
person-
called North Carolina for Trump, but the Post has not.
The Guardian has also called it for Trump.
my personal opinion is this is one of the times in history where the human race is making a choice. We're choosing once again, are we going to go left or right, up or down? We are choosing where we're going from here as a species, because it's happening in Europe. It's happening in, Russia is already in a strongman. They've already made that choice. So the rest of us, the rest of the species are making the choice. And this is where we choose.
You know, a very close relative of mine has already decided that if it does go bad, as we can say it looks, that she is moving to Costa Rica. Never mind, the realities, but that's what she's chosen. And people are fleeing, and the one thing I thought about with fleeing is the world has increasingly become a place where the hell do you go?
Yeah.
Where the hell do you go? Some of the Asian countries I can see. Vietnam, Japan. I could see one of those. But Australia is going fascist.
Japan is going more traditional.
Yeah, they've done this. There and some of these countries in Central America, some of these countries in South America.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Adam.
I'm sorry. Bolsonaro in Brazil was definitely they picked them from the same list of what they want the candidate to be. But I'm saying there's no place in the world right now which is going to be safe. For somebody like me and Bob, and I'm not going to make assumptions about anybody else because that would be rude. Bob made the mistake of mentioning his age. I have mentioned my age, so I'm not going to make assumptions for any of you. But what happens to us is we know how old we are. We know how healthy we are. We have an estimate in our mind was how much time we need to tread water. It's the young people who are in danger.
Yeah.
If what they have said about the worst of my life expectancy is true, I'm safe from Trump.
Oh yeah.
But I just got 2 grandnephews in 1 year, and I'm worried about them.
I have a son,
and I want to live to see them. I want to live to meet them, and I would like to live and get to know their personalities, which they're still not really going to have when I meet them for the first time. Okay, I want to see this. I have a relative who's gay, who I'm terrified for. I have I have other relatives who like me require Obamacare. And I think
Yeah.
the only reason that Trump and company want to destroy Obamacare is because the word Obama is in it.
Yep.
That's the only goddamn reason they want Obamacare gone, because it's the answer to what have the Democrats ever done for you?
No, Adam, sorry. No, it's worse than that, because they were the ones that called it Obamacare. They
Yes, I agree with you.
they truly believe that those who can't afford it deserve to die. These are those people.
Mm-hmm.
It's worse than just they don't like the name Obama. It's that these are the people who they think they're the nobles and the rest of the world is the peasants. That's how fascists think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they hate Obamacare, which I thought was a stupid name anyway. If you're going to name it after the inventor, it should be Romney Care, because that's where it came from.
Massachusetts.
Yep. Massachusetts.
Why don't we just admit it? It's all about money, power,
Yep.
and
Yes.
it's you think that. Just a second here. I saw a beep that says somebody came in.
Maybe Jim Wright is back.
I don't see him.
I'm gonna. Okay,
Oh,
guys.
it's Thaddeus.
Thaddeus.
Hi, Thaddeus. Great to see you.
Well, hello. I haven't met you, Thaddeus.
Well,
I'm
he'll
Stephanie.
introduce
Hi.
himself, but let me just say this. I like Thaddeus. He's been somebody that just from the first time I met him, he seemed like a decent guy, and he's never done anything to tell me different. So thank you for coming, Thaddeus.
And he's a fabulous writer. And he is the
He
answer.
is a writer. That was my next question. Is he a writer or just damn good friend?
Let's let him tell us.
I'm a writer. I write speculative fiction, but I also deal with climate science, climate journalism, science explaining, sociology, psychology, philosophy.
You got a website?
Yeah. I do a little bit of everything.
He does.
Because most of what I see in the world today annoys me. And I think what annoys me most is that stupid people seem to rule the world. And there isn't a lot any of us can do about it.
That sums it up all right.
Yeah, that's the headline.
That's it. I'm not going to bury the lead. Stupid people rule the world. And they seem to have the money and the power and the influence that the rest of us need but can't ever get. Partially because we're not willing to be them. We're not willing to do whatever it takes. We're not willing to malign. I mean, I sit here and I think about what's going on out there. My wife is watching the election, so
Brave woman.
I hear it, but I try not to think about it, because part of my challenge as an individual that watches the world is that the people I've seen Donald Trump do things that no sane person should be allowed to do. And yet, like, for example, if I had said Mexicans were murderers and people in Puerto Rico were trash and I hate crippled people, I would be pretty much banned from anything that has popular, civilized public discourse. Mm-hmm. No one would ever speak to me again. Mm-hmm. They want to make him president. How does that work? How, in what world does that even make sense? So the only thing I can say is it must be the racism. It must be the desire to hold on to power no matter what. Because let me be real with you. If white women wanted to make this shit go away, all they would have had to do was just say no. They have more than half the vote. They have everything to lose. Their freedom, their autonomy, their bodily capabilities. They have to now put up with rapists and murderers and all kinds of crazy folk doing whatever they want to their bodies, and there's nothing they can do about it. They're making laws to make it so you can't do any. You said your goal is to go to the hospital and die. That's what they're offering you as a lifestyle choice. What sane woman would be like, yeah, Donald Trump's the guy for me. I love this guy. He's great.
Thaddeus, you missed the part of this where I was talking about the families in which the husband takes the ballots and votes all the mail-in ballots for the wife and everyone else in the family.
Thank you, Karen.
And I'm sure that gets done because that's how it is in my house. I tell my wife what I want. She fills it out. I don't touch that. I don't touch that.
No, but you're not an abuser.
But I'm
you
not
don't
an
abuse.
And she's not.
That's
Mail.
Right. It's mind-boggling. It is. I get it.
Yes.
It's, but you know, your point and the racism point that you just made, I think it's been made very clear in North Carolina tonight. The insane, well, insane's not even a fair word. The black man running for governor who was saying just the most insane thing I ever heard.
Literally.
He lost easily. The Democrats and Trump carried the state. So, yeah, there's a limit, you know. A black man can't get up and say things to that level of crazy and get elected. But a white man can say all that insane, I mean, just the most appalling stuff and still get elected. And it makes no sense to me. And since Thaddeus is here and you all still have plenty of people to talk, and I've been here for quite a while, I'm going to move on and let you all continue to so it's
thank you so much for joining us,
Jane.
Thank you, Nancy.
Nancy, but
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Thaddeus, and I'll look for your stuff now that I know who you are.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye. Sorry, I hit my mute button a couple times because you know what? I want to hear what Thaddeus has got to say here because it's coming from the heart.
I'm just frustrated. I'm just
Thaddeus, I'm sorry I walked away for a few seconds.
Oh,
I'm sorry I walked away for a few seconds. I had business.
Oh, no, it's probably a good thing.
It's not a problem.
We all need to do that for a few seconds.
I'm just frustrated, and I absolutely understand. That's why I wasn't here. At 6 o'clock, I was picking her up and from dialysis and getting her food and putting her down and making sure she was comfortable. And so I was like, I'm pretty confident that whatever's happening will probably still be happening. So I come back, it's 8:30, and you're still here. I'm not surprised. I needed a minute to just decompress because I went in there and it was something like 2:11 to 1 something, and I'm like,
yeah.
So and I joked earlier. I said, "Well, I'm gonna run over here and get this pizza before I come back tomorrow and see a sign that says whites only because we're back in the 1850s." And as horrible as that sounds, I wouldn't be surprised. Literally nothing could surprise me at this point.
I know, and it's
So at this point,
upsetting.
The Washington Post is still not calling North Carolina for Trump. So the UK Guardian and the, as Nancy pointed out, and the New York Times have called North Carolina for Trump like a half hour ago, but Washington Post is still like, yeah, we don't see it yet. So there's some hope.
They just called Connecticut, believe it or not.
Wait, for who?
For Harris.
Oh, good.
Like, I mean, according to
it's not that bad yet.
Like, I don't think conservative in Connecticut. There's a lot of rich people, but
you'll figure rich people would want someone with an IQ higher than Donald Trump's, right? You figured.
I don't know why any rich people support someone who will absolutely 100% crash the economy.
Right.
Okay.
That makes no sense.
My mother is a history geek. She specializes in World War II Germany, essentially its rise into fascism. That is, that
late Weimar Republic.
Yeah, thank you. I did not remember. It is not my kink. Um, hey, we're all geeks here, right? We are
I'll
all
just say it.
geeks here.
Speak German to me right now. That anyway.
Sprechen die Deutsch nun. No, that's my. I've only got what I got from osmosis, but with a parent like me, you know what's going on. I'm sorry. My anxiety medicine kicked in, so I might act like I'm a little drunk. But Thaddeus, I get you. I understand. That's why I'm kind of stoned right now, because if I wasn't, I would be crying. This shit terrifies me because I know from my mother that this is where it starts. And the the people who are wealthy, they think that they can control him. That's where Vance came from.
He can't
Vance
control
is
himself.
smarter. No, he can't control himself. They are mistaken. I agree with that. But that is exactly what the wealthy class did in the rise of Hitler. They thought they
Yep.
could control the buffoon, and the shit is fucking terrible. I'm sorry. I just
Okay,
All
folks.
right.
I used the word once. She used the word once. According to Bob, we can't use that word more than this times we get thrown off YouTube. Okay, or something. Is that correct, Bob?
okay. Perhaps I should go then.
I'm not
No,
saying to you
I
to do
mean,
that.
you do what you need for self-care, Stephanie, but we're
Yes.
happy to keep you.
Okay,
How
thank
does
you.
someone
Now,
who hates half the country hope to run it? He hates half the country. How does he hope to run it? Can anyone explain that to me?
he's not going to.
Why are absolutely no votes in from Nevada? Makes no sense.
That is interesting. But, I've always noticed Nevada comes in late. I never understood why, but I noticed they always seem to come in late. Maybe they're out gambling.
So, weirdly, we have the Washington Post saying Harris 192, Trump 214, and the New York Times Harris 187, Trump 230. So there is, what is it? The philosophers among the mice and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We want rigidly defined areas of doubt and uncertainty. That's what we have here.
Mm-hmm.
Except that it doesn't make sense. You do understand that.
Of course.
He is a racist, rapist.
It makes no damn sense at all.
There should literally be no world where a highly qualified individual and a racist racist, rapist, failure,
uneducated.
He's everything wrong with any.
Who makes fun of disabled people, and yeah.
I will go further than that. There is no world where he should be winning to a total hack. There is no world you can get a person who's like a normal incompetent person should not be beating him.
He shouldn't even be able to beat Vance.
No, he's not. But this is Biden. Oh God. Okay. Yes, I'm paranoid. I've been told that before. But they manipulated situations to get us to not run the white guy from him again. It's because he's not a woman. A woman. There are I know people I know women who say that they have problems seeing a woman as president.
They don't look around the world.
Understand why. We've had 260-something years of white guys running this country, and I hate to break it to you, but they haven't done a model job. They have not impressed me in any way that is significant. Yeah, many of them got the job done, some better than others, but I wouldn't call this like, wow, every white guy that's ever been president has been amazing, and we should just keep doing that. No, I'm right now. I would put
kind of the opposite.
Thaddeus, I wrote a short story for Bob, actually for Deborah, in Madam President, and it addressed the issue of why Americans will elect a black man as president, but they won't elect a woman of any color. And the reason is because most white men have worked alongside black men in office, on football teams, whatever. They're used to seeing men, black men included, in a position of authority. But the only women they've ever been close to are usually their girlfriends, their wives, and their mothers. And they tend to look upon those people as people who nag them. And most white men will just not vote for a woman. It's visceral.
Many years ago.
Does anybody mind if I go on a small rant?
Go for it.
Please.
Oh, yay.
It's your podcast, dude. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? You guys are all smart people saying smart things, and we can think we're sitting here talking to each other, but remember, there's an audience out there. Okay, and
hi, audience.
Yeah, and it's like this. Stephanie's pretty much right. Race is a factor, all this is a factor, but it's women. I'll tell you about my mother. Some of you have heard this story before. My mother, I love her, is dead now, but she raised 11 children, okay? I worked alongside my mother in a cedar break where we hauled out logs where we were cutting cedar posts to put food on the table, and did it every day. Did it Thanksgiving Day, my birthday when I was 12 years old. We went out and did that. I watched the women on that farm alongside my mother drive the wheat trucks out there back and forth out to the combines to drive to put the wheat into the take it into the silos. Okay. The women worked. The women were strong. The women were powerful. When my mother's car, an old 6-cylinder Plymouth station wagon, broke down, her and her mother rebuilt the engine. And one of the visions I have of my grandmother, and I love her to death, was watching her walk through the yard holding up that's how I know it was a 6-cylinder, because she had the head gasket for the straight 6, carrying it around. This was not a shrinking, violent woman. And this is a woman, when I asked her, why in God's name would you think of voting for Trump? She said to me with all seriousness, I don't think the women have the mental oomph, the internal power, the internal strength to deal with what the presidency demands of them. Okay, so one of the things that just pisses me off about this whole mess is when we train women to think that they're less than a man, that just because they're a woman, they can't do it. That's one of the reasons I hauled my daughter up on the roof and showed her how to roof a house. One of the reasons I showed her how to swing a hammer, use a saw, whatever the thing was, change a tire. But we have got to do a better job of making women understand and being there for them that they, plenty of women get this. Okay, I'm not saying that women in general, but it's just the idea that a woman like my mother, who did everything she did, was as strong as she was, could somehow get the message in our society that somehow she didn't have the wherewithal to be president because she was a woman. And so, God darn it, it just pisses me off to see all of the men in this country, and it's the men and then the white women. So, I mean, there's a racial component, just saying we're not going to vote for a woman. Hillary Clinton was the most qualified candidate for president we probably had in 100 years. Okay.
Bob, Adam has something important.
Yes, Adam.
Virginia was just called for Harris.
Who?
Virginia. About 3 minutes ago, they announced it.
Yeah, everyone is saying the Times is still 200 for Harris, but the Post is 205 for Harris and Trump at 230.
Okay, well, it's still going to come down to those blue wall states.
Yep, all of which are leaning Trump at the moment.
And that's where they're going. And so, gosh darn it, I'm sorry I ate up a lot of time with just a kind of a pointless monologue on the
No,
It
it's
was
very
pointless.
insightful.
It was no pointless. I have to take the time for a few seconds to talk about an old movie, a crappy movie that I hope none of you go to see.
Oh, no, Adam Troy Castro is going to talk about a movie and use it as an example. How could that be?
I
What
always
is my surprise face?
There was a movie about in the 60s called Flowers for My President with Fred McMurray and Polly Bergen, where she has become president and he is the first man, and she makes a decision at the end of the movie that it's not right for her to be president. She has to retire and take care of her kids. And this is like after 6 months of the presidency. And this was the way people thought that this is the way a woman in office would be. See, I kept the movie part short. And what Kisses for My President is the name of the movie, somebody said. But this was an excuse that was used about Kamala. I mean, they said, "Oh my God, what if she gets pregnant? What if she gets pregnant? She should get a medal at her time of life."
Yeah, she's
should.
60.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's not unheard of, but it should be. I mean, but the people do not think past the template thoughts, and that's one of the major problems that we have.
Mm-hmm.
It's
like, well, that joke. There's a joke about a man and his son were walking down the street and got hit by a runaway car, and they go into the hospital. The father dies on the way to the hospital, but the surgeon in the ER says, "Oh my God, I can't operate it. This patient is my son." See, who is the doctor?
I heard this when I was in my singletons, so I do know where it goes, but I don't know if anybody else does. Okay.
I'm just gonna leave it there.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Folks, I'm going to Pumpkin in just a few minutes.
I want to tell you something before you go.
Well, you're living 3 hours in the future compared to those of us on the West Coast.
Let me tell you something before you go. Do you know what's going on in Japan right now? Japan has a 0 birth rate. Do you know what that means? That means that right now, women are choosing to not have children, while Japan is continuing to get older. With a 0 birth rate, it means that they will have more old people than they will have young people to take their jobs. This is a destructive arc that if they cannot change it, and it does not look like they are going to, this means Japan is in trouble. But it's not just Japan, it's pretty much most societies that look like ours, that look like Japan's, where women have decided, to hell with you, patriarchy, to hell with you. Mm-hmm. You told us we cannot work if we have children. We cannot work if we get pregnant. So women's solution to that is, I guess we're not going to get pregnant. And we will just let this civilization burn to the ground. And personally, I'm absolutely with it. I'm absolutely with it. Because if you cannot change your culture to allow the people in your culture to have opportunity, if you're telling me that women cannot have opportunity because their job is to be pregnant and stay home, that's a problem. Because you're not making it possible for them to have an equal quality of life to the men who are throwing themselves out of windows because they're working too hard.
And this is essentially makes them one of the countries, and it's not just them that is advertising. Come here, we'll give you a house.
That's right. They are that desperate that they are now actually giving parts of Japan away to get people to
Spain is like that. Several others.
That's right. There's a lot of these nations that are having 0 birth rates that have women have decided no more. we'll just let it burn. And I'm trying to figure out what happened here, because this was that moment. This was the moment where women should have looked up and said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. There's 68,000 women who are about to have the children of their rapist. You feel me when I tell you this, right?
Yes.
They were raped, and now they are being forced to have the children of their rapist. That's now. Should Donald Trump win? Anyone care to imagine what that number will look like? Oh, maybe a year from now. Maybe 2 years from now.
It can be. It'll be lower. But do you remember?
What do you mean it'll be lower? Oh no, sir. It will be higher.
No,
Astronomically higher.
I'm actually answered it reverse than what I meant. I apologize. But what I'm reminded of is that fabulous guy Todd Akin from a few years ago. Todd Akin was one of several conservative Republican people who took the position that women can stop their pregnancies if they wish, because
I remember him.
Yeah, they could stop their pregnancies because women's bodies have a way of turning that whole thing off.
Yeah, they could shut that down.
Yeah, and there's a reason why this is horrifying and fascinating if you look where he got this story. If you identify the source of a bullshit story, you know who the teller is listening to. And the whole idea that a woman who is raped cannot get pregnant, which is a right wing, the whole legitimate rapist and things like that. This comes from Nazi experiments on captive women.
Whichever way you are for me, Adam. Yes.
What?
Yes.
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 They were of the opinion, and they did this experiment on captive women in the concentration camps who were raped multiple times a day but didn't get pregnant. Clearly, women who are raped don't get pregnant, but that's what they thought. But that comes from the fact that the women were also starving. And this became a so-called a fact of faith for decades in the in right-wing speech. Listening to, they were listening to Nazis, and that should have been the first warning.
I want to bring up something very, very different, but also building off of Thaddeus's comments about women not being able to get abortions legally. I have a friend, a science fiction writer, who moved to a very red state because she had family there and it was an inexpensive place to retire. And what she quickly discovered was she couldn't find a gynecologist because all the gynecologists, not wanting to be sued, had left the state, which meant you not only couldn't get an abortion, you couldn't get normal health care if you had ovarian cancer. You were screwed.
Yeah.
The other thing that it does even more interestingly is you end up with the cities in the red states with intelligent people and doctors moving out, and you actually end up with a doctor shortage, an educational shortage.
Yes.
Colleges are closing their medical school programs because they can't get anyone to teach.
Half the decent teachers in Florida are leaving because they can't stomach teaching, among other things, that
Happy
slavery
slaves.
was good for black people.
Yeah,
you know?
that's that.
If I could be magical, the thing I would most want is that everybody would be able to make a thing around their fence, around their house, their apartment, their condo. It would levitate into the sky, and you would get to decide whether you wanted to live in a blue or a red state. And all of the red state people would go to red states, and all the blue state people would go to blue states. This would make me very, very happy. But nobody wants to leave where they live. They want to fight with their neighbors instead.
Well,
I mean, the fact is that I've lived in Tennessee, I've lived in Texas. The fact is that red states are full of blue people.
But the blue people are stuck living.
They are.
They've been gerrymandered, and Well, bringing it back to writing, the Honor Harrington universe has this when the way he set up sanctuary, I think that's what it said. Oh, did I get it? Well, anyway, the bad guys from the main character, they set it up as that's kind of what happened, is that they became that type of society, and that type of society is not sustainable, because Adam talks about the brain drain and the mismanagement, and so they have to keep expanding because they collapse upon themselves because of their policies.
We would never let it happen. So that's the problem. If a red state continues to be a terrible state, it doesn't have services, it doesn't have tools, it doesn't have what it needs, the government just bails them out. They just say, well, you guys are broke, you're poor, you're toothless. We can't allow that, so we're going to send stuff to you. And the only time those states ever actually collapse is if their governors go and say, well, these people would rather be starving than have health care.
That sounds like DeSantis.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So only when that happens does a state really begin the slide, the deadly slide into unemployment, into lack of health care, into people leaving the state, into the state basically imploding upon itself. For example, Florida, did you know if you were, let's say you had a job in Florida and life was good and you were doing well, and then you got unemployed, and you said, well, I'm going to take advantage of my unemployment. Do you know what happens when you try to get unemployment? Nothing. Nothing will happen for years. Many years, in fact. For some people, they've been trying to get unemployment for 2 or 3 years because the unemployment system there is broken. Not just broken, but catastrophically broken. So broken, it cannot be repaired. And people just don't talk about it anymore. One woman mentioned it because she was hired to try to figure out how to fix the database that powered the unemployment system. And when she told them what it needed to do, and they told her, we're not doing that, she just left. She said, okay, I'm cool. It's not a problem. She walks away. She tells people what happened. And this is the first time anybody knew how broken their unemployment system was. But that's just one piece of it. It's unemployment. If unemployment is broken, that means Social Security is broken. That means healthcare is broken. That means social services is broken. That means childcare services are broken. All of these things that if you go to Florida and ask people who live there, they will tell you they're broken. The only question you have to ask is, why aren't they being repaired? Because they want it that way. People who are poor, who are under-resourced, tend to vote what? Republican. Because Republicans blame all of their problems on other people. And these people are now poor and hungry and destitute. And so what are they going to do? Well, this Republican, he says it must be their fault. And so they are without training, without education. They follow the person that's giving them guidance. And that is what's killing all of these red states one after another. And we're about to watch it happen again. And I honestly, I don't know what to do with it. I just don't know what to do with it.
You are talking to among others, two Floridians who agree with you 100%.
And they both wrote stories for this book with exactly the points you just made.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, because I spend enough time. I did climate science. I was a writer for the Goodman Project for 10 years, and so I did a podcast for 6 years on climate change. And what I learned was that if you were a red state, you didn't believe in climate change. And thus, when climate change came to your state, you're like, oh my, where did this super tornado come from that wiped out everything for like 80 miles? We've never seen anything like that. Climate change, we talked about it. We've been talking about it for quite a while, and maybe you guys want to think about it. And they're like, no, climate change isn't real. We're going to just say we don't allow it. Matter of fact, in Florida, for example, you're not allowed to talk about climate change.
You're not allowed to talk about the flesh-eating bacteria in the heating up ocean down there. I got bitten by one of those bacteria, and it was terrifying.
It's terrifying. But you're not allowed to talk about any of these things because the governor wants you to believe the state is safe. Just come on down. Bring your friends and family. And tourism.
And people are building houses right where the floods went. They are
In the
building
flood
houses
zone.
where the land
Yes, yes.
disappeared.
While they're not aware that when their house is finished, there'll be no insurance companies to sell them insurance, because every major insurance company
Yes.
that used to be in Florida has slowly migrated away. And that was one of the first things I tried to tell people. I say to you, you don't believe in climate change? You don't have to. Don't believe in it. But ask your local insurer if they do. And they'll tell you, absolutely, because we're paying for all of these things that happen again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and we're not paying for it anymore. Insurance used to be about making money, not spending it. Now it's about spending money, and they're not happy with that. So the solution, we jet, and they're leaving. State Farm used to be California's insurer of choice, but now
Yeah.
State Farm said, "Oh my God, there's so much fire here. We can't be here. We are out." And
Yeah.
and let me assure you, they didn't just try to leave. Here's what they did. They took a Google satellite photograph of my backyard and said, "You know, we're looking at this Google satellite, and we think there's like old cars in your backyard. And we think that there's junk piled up in your backyard. And so we are canceling your insurance." I said, "Excuse me?" He says, "Yes, yes. Our Google photograph," they sent me the photograph, and I knew it was a Google photograph. How do I know? Because I'm a tech guy. I went and looked at it from space and said, "Hey, this is the same photograph from Google. This photograph is incorrect." So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and take a picture of my backyard, and I'm going to map it to your little Google image, and you'll see there are no dead cars in my backyard. There are no dead car engines. There's nothing in my backyard that shouldn't be here. My wife's a gardener. She has pots, potted plants that she keeps out for keeping plants beautiful. She makes a great effort to keep her yard lovely. So I took pictures, mapped them out, and I sent it back to the insurance company, and they said, "Well, I said, look, let us just go ahead and cut the bullshit. You guys are leaving the state. I get it. But you know what? I've been paying you for 20 years, and I intend to continue to pay you till I can find someone that offers me a better price than you do. But how dare you try to cheat me and accuse me of being dirty and trashy when I take great pride in my house and in my backyard? And how dare you try to think that I was just going to stand here and take this?" She says, "Oh, sir, well, we didn't." Don't, young lady, please. I'm an old man now. Don't fuck with me. Do not do that.
That's number 3. Oh God. I'm sorry.
I know. I'm sorry. But that was that was their way of trying to get out of it. That was their way of trying to escape paying for my insurance. And everyone where I lived had the same problem. We all had that. And most of them not knowing what to do, they just capitulated, and State Farm walked away. It is incredible when you look at the companies that will tell you, "We don't believe in climate change," or the state will say, "We don't believe in climate change," or the government will say, "We don't believe in climate change." But any business associated with climate change has walked out the door just as fast as the law will allow, and in some cases faster than that, because many of them end up State Farm got taken to tax for abandoning their clients in that fashion. So it's not just in California, it's everywhere climate disasters are happening. Insurance companies are walking away. So if it hasn't happened to you yet and you own your home, keep an eye out. They're coming for you.
Thaddeus, have you seen the interesting disconnect where you have people on the right who take an automatic knee-jerk negative thing towards any kind of innovative technology, who suddenly turn around and invest in it when companies start making money doing it? I'm thinking specifically of wind farms and electric vehicles. Those were like things for the woke folks, and then suddenly they became the latest investment trend.
That always happens when corporations start looking at a new technology and it starts looking like it will make money. A technology that is just an idea, everybody hates ideas. They only want ideas that make money. So if you have an idea and you say, "I can capture the fog and turn it into water," people look at you and go, "Oh, you need help." And then someone builds this device and it makes 100,000 gallons of water in 6 months. Oh my goodness, we need to invest in that, because it's not an idea anymore. It's a thing now. It's a prototype. Someone's made it.
It's
now
proven.
it costs you $100,000, but if you can make it for $10,000, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that technology to evolve. And the only way technology evolves, if you're a venture capitalist, is to throw money at it. They have enough money. They literally can throw money at anything they want. And if they never make a dime, they're rich. That's the great part of being a venture capitalist.
I have to ask you the burning question for me. I've lived in Europe and here. And my question is, why has business in this country completely allowed trains to fall apart? Why has no one ever significantly tried to make a lot of money off of fast trains the way they do in Europe?
Gasoline. The gasoline industry pretty much chokes anything that looks like a train to death. Because when people have to drive anywhere, they make money. They love making money. They love making money more than they love making anything else. And a train, if you actually built a network of high-speed trains across this country, people would drive less. And that would cut into Big Oil's economic largesse. They're the people choking trains to death. They want trains to die. The only reason trains still exist is because we move so much of our product. So much of our factory product travels along train tracks. But because they don't have to be fast, they just have to get there, those train tracks are barely maintained. Barely.
I live over the train tracks. They're 2 blocks from my house. Major route between Canada and Los Angeles. And landslides constantly. And when they clear them, they send all the freight trains through, and they tell everybody on Amtrak to get on a bus.
Yep, but that's gasoline. Gasoline, the big oil industry controls why we don't have trains. It controls why planes fly where they do, how often they do, and because, again, oil is used to make planes. It makes planes fly. So they never want you to stop flying. They never want you to stop driving. But a train would be cost effective, and if you did it right, would use almost no renewable resources outside of the power plants that's used to power the train system, which would be a fraction of what you spend on cars and gas, and they don't want that. And unfortunately, I see a future not too long from now where our government, after Donald Trump has finished destroying it, will have to invest in train systems, simply because the cost of gas is going to start reaching a point where you can no longer pretend that we have enough of it to last forever. Anybody know how much gas America has in it? If right now no country gave us gas, we didn't buy gas from anybody. Anybody know how long that would last for America, the nation?
As long as it needs to. Last I remember, we had produced as much petroleum as we used. We achieved that.
If we stop buying gas from other places, we make enough gas to provide gas for everyone, but we would pay 10 times what it's worth right now. Gas is cheap. Yeah. We buy most of it from other places. If we stopped buying gas from other places and we just use the gas that we produce, we'd pay a whole lot more for it. It would not last nearly as long. And if those refineries were to stop for whatever reason, there's only enough gas in America for 3 days.
Wow.
3 days. That's how much gas we use. You have to know how much gas we use. We use an incredible amount of gas. Most cities are good for 3 days. So if you live in a city and there's a natural disaster and it's terrible, let's say all the roads to your city suddenly cease to exist, so you can't drive any more gas to your city. 3 days. No more gas. No gas, no power plants, nothing. 3 days.
This is the only way. They're only going to cause an earthquake.
They are building. They've not created a disaster. What they've created is a dependency that allows them to make us dependent upon them and unable to live without them. If we decided to build, for example, let's say every parking lot in where I live in California, let's say California decided that we were going to build solar cells on everything. Every wall, every building, every road, every parking lot, every cat, every dog will walk around with its own solar cell. We will build solar energy everywhere. We will use nothing that's not solar or wind powered. we could do.
Well, okay.
We would make
Look,
money. We would make money. We would
yes,
save.
you are not wrong. No, you're not wrong. What I'm saying is that, okay, there's that what you're describing is a societal force, and it's got itself wedged into the forces of the rest of
Yeah.
us. It will eventually crumble. The problem is they're the ones that decide when they fall. And the more force it takes to get them to fall, the worse the earthquakes, society wise, it's going to be. It took World War II the last time historically to do that. I don't want to have to do that again because we have toys that will prevent us from existing. See, this is why I had to take my anxiety meds, because that's what they're going for.
I spend a lot of time, like I said, I spent a lot of time doing this. I spent a decade learning about the things I'm talking about. And I spent that decade because I wanted to understand why we don't have trains. I wanted to understand why we don't have trams. In every other part of the world, trains and trams, two very useful technologies that reduce the number of people on the road, that cut down on air pollution. These are no-brainers. The reason we don't have them is because America is large. If you go out and drive across America, I've done it 4 or 5 times. America is so large, you forget how large America is. You just don't realize it. Like if I picked up Texas and dropped it on top of Europe, I cover most of Europe, pretty much just like that. That's how big it is here. We forget that, so we don't demand the things that people who lived in Europe demanded. They don't have a lot of space. And after World War II, when they destroyed half of it, they decided, we're not going to rebuild this. We might as well put some trains in here. Kind of makes sense. So they did. You're right. For us to change what we're doing, it would require a catastrophic event. Or we could choose, just like we chose with the New Deal to put in all those freeways, we could choose to say, hey, Chicago's really in the center of the country. Why don't we build a train system that goes from Chicago to Texas, from Chicago to New York, from Chicago to Nevada, and then from Nevada to Los Angeles, then to San Francisco, then to
the
Oregon.
airline hubs. The airline hubs.
Yes, basically do that. We could fix this problem. We're not gonna because, well, let's face it, airplanes would become a problem. They'd be ghettoized because most people would take 2 days to travel somewhere if it would save them $300. They would. I'll take 2 days to travel someplace if I don't have to spend $500 to get there. So I spend $50. I can travel to New York from Texas. Yeah, I'm going to do that. $100. I'm going to do that. Rather than fly to Texas where they're going to make the cost of flying more expensive. Baggage becomes expensive. Traveling becomes expensive. You have to see that this tectonic shockwave that we're talking about would be a societal thing, but we can make a choice to do it. We don't have to destroy the nation to do it. We just have to choose and understand that as we add more of one thing and we take less of another thing, we're cleaning our air. We're making it more breathable.
Yes.
We're giving ourselves better choices. We're increasing our health. We're changing how we're changing how businesses evolve. Because when you build trains, you build train hubs. You have to build places along the trains for the trains to stop, and you're making opportunity. We could make this an opportunity.
Tesla.
We need to break in for a second because Adam is losing his ability to speak, and we want him to have the last word before
Rarely
he loses.
happens. Folks, this has been a fascinating, if dark, 3 hours. Stephanie, you're great. Karen, you're great. Bob, you're great. Thaddeus, you are fantastic. You're
Oh, wow, my
you're all
word.
great to listen to. And I hope that we can all
It's 9 o'clock.
give thumbs up at a better time.
Um,
And in the meantime, the bed is, and Alan, you too. Alan, I'm sure we share a problem right now. I want to see you at a time when we both put it to bed.
Uh,
Okay,
uh,
so go ahead.
Hey, let me butt in. I just want to say this. Guys, Stephanie, I see your pain. This is hard. But you know what? We're going to make it through it. You're not alone in this world. And Adam, thank you so much for being here. You've been kind of a moderating. You're like the ballast on the boat on this.
Gee, thank you. They filled the bilge.
Hey, yeah, you're just a bunch of slag iron, but you're Bob damn it, you're our slag iron.
But seriously,
Okay.
everybody, I really am pumpkining for that reason. That's the only reason I'm leaving. I want to see no pumpkin in the morning, but we will see what happens. Okay, so have a good night, all of you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you again.
Good night. And I gotta do the same because I got a dentist appointment in the morning. I should be in bed now. So
Well, go to bed, Steph.
I'm going to share one thing. You know what this is?
what?
I wear this 3 days every 2 weeks. This is a chemo pump.
Oh,
This is a chemo pump, and it's because it's 3 days of chemo. They can't keep me there, so I wear this. I am attached to this, and tonight, and it gets taken off again tomorrow. Tonight, I'm going to listen to the little noise it makes every 2.5 minutes for the next 8 hours.
okay.
It does not go away. So I need to get what sleep I can tonight. Again, to all of you, have a good night, and maybe it'll look brighter in the morning.
Adam, it has been a delight to have
Good
you.
night, Adam.
You were a delight. And so for the record, you know what this is? This is rye whiskey.
Okay.
This
wish
is
I
from
did.
2016. I drank the first half of this bottle. I'm not going to drink the whole rest of it because I want to wait for 2028 when, like Charles I collapsed, the reign of Charles I collapsed after 11 years, that England rose again.
Okay.
And America will rise again from this. If this is what's happening, we will rise again.
Have a good night, you all.
Good night, Adam.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Adam.
So I have a tweet from Barack Obama
Read it.
that he pinned from 8 hours ago. So it's pinned tweet. And he writes, "It took several days to count every ballot in 2020, and it's very likely we won't know the outcome tonight either. So please keep a few things in mind as you make your voice heard today. Thousands of election workers around the country are working hard today. Respect them. Thank them. Don't share things before checking your sources. Let the process run its course. It takes time to count every ballot." I really miss having him as my president.
Amen. Now, Stephanie, I didn't knock her out, so she must have left.
Yes.
Yeah, she said she was leaving.
Appointment in the morning.
Ah,
Well, guys, you're all been marvelous. Karen, you're kind of like, we had no idea what we were doing tonight, but we did it anyway.
Yes,
Those
that's our
people that are
tagline.
still hanging around watching it, seeing us, giving you an opportunity just to kind of look into the world because we've been talking like it's just us. And,
no, it's lots of people. And
Yeah.
I've been watching the comments. Everyone in the comments, I've been watching the comments. So haven't always been able to, comment on the comments, but, Hey, we had lots of cool people here. We got some of the B Cube regulars. We got other folks that I haven't seen before. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I hope Jim's got his pastrami up to the right temperature.
I imagine so.
And Thaddeus, it's been too long. I saw that you were hesitant about coming on tonight.
Wasn't you guys. It was the last time Donald Trump won an election. I wrote an article the day before. And no one read that article. And it's sad because I thought more people should have. In that article, I described his arrival as the end of the world because I knew him. I'm a New Yorker. So I grew up with the excesses of Donald Trump. So I knew him, and I knew that he would be a nightmare. And I went and gathered up all the stuff that happened when I was a kid, and when he did what he did, and all the ways he mistreated people, and how he talked to people. And I pointed this out. So I wrote the article. He won. I was not surprised because I said in my article, what's the thing that hurts the most people? What causes the most harm to the most vulnerable? Donald Trump. He would do that. The nature of his presidency would do that. And he went on to become one of the most catastrophic events in this nation. If for no other reason than for 75 days, he did nothing during the initial outbreak of COVID. That 75 days basically meant that we, as a nation, would be stuck with this disease now, probably forever. He made no good decisions. He fought against every decision that was necessary. And we later find out that he knew, he didn't just know, he knew 75 days before the rest of us just how dangerous the disease was. And he left us to die. And yet, somehow magically, he's still going to end up becoming the president again. Which tells me the people who benefited the most from his existence are the same people who funded this nightmare. They funded it. They paid for it. Donald Trump is a president for hire. Do not ever mistake his rise to fame because he was intelligent or well-spoken or policy-driven or focused and erudite. He's none of those things. I have never seen a finer word salad than Donald Trump speaking in general. He will just say things. Say again?
He's a stooge.
He's a stooge. Correct. He is a pawn. He is a vehicle for powerful people like Elon Musk, like Peter Thiel, and Bezos, and Zuckerberg. All these people who stand to benefit from the lack of regulation in industries that, so should be regulated so much. They should be so regulated. And the regulation committees that should exist, like the FDA, the USDA, these agencies, IRS, they're all being starved to death so that while we're busy chasing food poisoning and wondering why no one's being taxed, his friends are happily changing the laws to suit them. The Supreme Court was not an accident. All the lower courts that Donald Trump filled, all 400 of them, not an accident. All of this was a way for them to rule the country without actually having to be in office. They know they have no policy. They never have. The Republicans haven't had a policy for at least 25 years. So what have they done instead? Every time they get into office, they try to take over the judicial system. Donald Trump was the key to doing that. He stacked the lower courts. He stacked the Supreme Court. Now, they don't have to have policy. When they want something, they rush it through the courts. They sing it and dance it till it dances up to the Supreme Court, who they own, and then say, here's a law that we think should happen, and you guys should make that happen. And wow, they comply and find a way to take whatever this law is, no matter how terrible, they find a way to make it pass, bypassing Congress, bypassing the president, and just putting it into place. And because Congress is owned and basically deadlocked, they can't do any laws there, so that law that gets put into place doesn't get overridden. And if the president doesn't have the wherewithal or the interest or the capacity to overrule it, which he may not, that law just sits there and inconveniences everyone. The judicial system has been compromised intentionally with malice and forethought. knowing exactly what it would allow them to do. It would allow them to run the country without having to have a president or a Congress. Masterstroke.
The coup has been successful.
Well, it wasn't necessarily. This is not just a coup. See, a coup implies you take over the government with the goal of dominating it. This isn't taking over the government. This is bypassing the government. This is literally a means by which they simply say, we're going to make laws that we like, that are going to do the things that we want, and Congress can't do it because they're backstopped, and the president can't do it because he has a limit to what he can do, and the Supreme Court is in our pocket with all the other courts. So we basically own a third of the government. We don't even have to take it over. We can ignore most of the government as long as the government backs our laws. It's a perfect plan. I wish I had thought of it myself.
Guys, I think that we should call that a great closing argument. Thaddeus, thank you so much. Karen, you are such an asset to BQ Press, you and Tom both. I hope that you stick with us as we enter into the world of the I think now the hold up the second book, if you got it handy still.
This one?
The blue one. What's the title?
Okay. More Alternative Truths.
And the subtitle?
Stories from the Resistance.
Okay. That's what we've got now, guys. We are entering into the world of the resistance. Okay? And, the legitimate, we're not hiding out there blowing up convoys, but by God, we're speaking truth to power. And I'm glad. I can't think of a better group of people to be involved in it with. What about you, Cliff? What do you think?
I was thinking about Terry Bisson, to whom I dedicated my story in Southern Truths, and who was one of my teachers at Clarion, and who was my predecessor hosting SF and SF, Science Fiction in San Francisco, and who I was privileged to call my friend. I miss him terribly since his recent demise, and in January of this year. And he knew a lot of people in the Weather Underground. He was, there's stories that I'm not going to say online. But
and let's face it, guys, the days of the Weather Underground, you could get away with a lot more than you can today.
Correct.
Technology.
And, we have no secrets anymore. And any illusion we have of secrecy or that is simply an illusion. We simply do what we're doing until we become enough of an annoyance. But again, your story that you wrote now feels far more visceral, as do many of the ones that Karen has put together for us over the years. And so that leaves Alan. You've been quiet.
Yeah, Ted Cruz one.
It's the quiet ones you have to watch out for, Bob.
Here, but not one. On.
Okay.
So are we winding down?
Yeah. My mouse.
I want to thank everybody who's been chatting away on Facebook and contributing to the conversation and updating us. It's been great.
It has been great. I haven't been this depressed since 2016.
Yeah, I'm glad my mother didn't hang around for this one.
Well, I just hope that I'm around for the inauguration of Charles II. to steal from British history. Oh, I know Thaddeus. He was no great gift to humanity, but we have just elected Charles Cromwell to be president of the United States.
Now I'm thinking Oliver's Army by Elvis Costello about Oliver Cromwell.
Yeah. Well, my mouse has decided to quit on me because I've worn the batteries down. So I'm just gonna say I'm gonna have to go get a battery before I can press the button to end the stream. So you guys chat amongst yourselves for a moment while I go find another battery.
Okay.
Cliff, I didn't know you were a Clarion graduate.
Yep. Yeah. 1997, long time ago. But I had some excellent teachers. My first week teacher was Octavia Butler. So that was she was a very serious person. And a presence. If you were ever in the room, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to be in the room with Octavia, but she filled a room when she walked into a room. There was more gravitas in her pinky finger than most people have in their whole bodies. But one of the most intense moments of my life was with each one of your Clarion teachers. You spend an hour with them talking about your fiction, and spending an hour with Octavia Butler talking about my fiction was like, it was intense. She mostly liked it, so that was good.
Yeah, they must have liked you. They got you. They brought you in. I've tried many times to get in the Clarion, at least 4, and I've never been able to get past the intro to it.
It's
I basically
highly competitive.
That.
Yeah,
say again?
It's highly competitive.
I did not attend Clarion, but I was the chair of the board of directors of it. I attended Viable Paradise.
I hear very good things about Viable Paradise.
I don't think I get into any of those camps.
I don't think I could have gotten into Clarion.
Well, let me tell you, Thaddeus, you're a fabulous writer. I mean, I'm a fan, so.
I would love to have attended it once upon a time, but I've decided that since the path appears closed, I'll just do what I've always done and find another way. So I did. I taught myself to write, and I like what I write. And of late, the last couple of things I started writing, I'm really digging it. It's been so rare that I've been excited about something I've been writing.
Oh, hell yeah.
That has been
keep doing it. And
enjoying writing is the way to go.
You did a fabulous reading at Lit Crawl. I'm glad I came up for that. I was so happy to see that.
Okay, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to our audience.
Goodbye,
audience.
Thank you guys for putting up with our angst.